Chapter 1175. Koki no Koki smiled, but did not say anything. Yu Yang suddenly realized. The way of the sword that he had grasped was naturally correct. However, because his realm was not high enough, it was impossible for him to comprehend the entire way of the sword. For example, he still needed to improve on the profoundness and the extension of the true meaning. In terms of comprehending the way of the sword, every time he went up a level, he would discover that there was a more exquisite true knowledge. There was nothing wrong with the sword intent comprehended at every level, but the way of the sword wasn't an absolute and unchanging truth. It had its own explanation in every level, and the content of the higher levels would be richer, more complete and more vast. Now, it seemed that he had reached a new level, and it was time for him to make a breakthrough. A fragrant wind had unknowingly filled the entire dream realm. He turned his head. The guy from another world was pleasantly surprised to find that the sword goddess, whom he had not seen for a long time, was standing behind him. Had she finally appeared to guide him? It seemed that comprehending and using the Wang Lung Yuan was an opportunity. The sword goddess signaled to Yu Yang to calm down. She had always been like this. She would only demonstrate once, and regardless of whether Yu Yang could comprehend it or not, she would float away. Yu Yang usually did not disappoint her. He would always grasp the opportunity and successfully receive enlightenment, gain knowledge, and advance to a new realm. However, this kind of teaching method was a kind of pressure. No matter how confident Yu Yang was, he did not dare to be careless. Even if he failed to comprehend it, he could still learn from Koki no Koki. However, Yu Yang definitely did not want to disappoint the sword goddess one day. Failure was not an option, not even once. Seeing that Yu Yang was completely focused, the sword goddess nodded her head slightly to show her approval. She raised her wrist and pointed her finger. Instantly, the sword intent shone like stars, incomparably brilliant. From the void, trillions of sword chi broke through the void and intertwined to form a giant golden dragon. Compared to the golden dragon transformed from Yu Yang's Wang Lung Yuan sword, this golden dragon was 10 times larger. It was 1,000 meters long. It was truly a mystical dragon whose head could be seen but whose tail was rarely seen. It was also the Wang Lung Yuan sword. Yu Yang felt that his sword chi, in front of her, was like a fledgling compared to an eagle, or a shrimp compared to a giant whale. They were on completely different levels. Furthermore, the heavenly sword goddess had purposely controlled her strength and did not use her full strength. She did not want to shock Yu Yang too much and affect his current state of mind and cultivation. Even if it was like this, Yu Yang was still dumbstruck. The giant golden dragon soared into the sky and let out a majestic dragon roar that shook the entire universe. The heavens and the earth immediately dimmed. If he did not see it with his own eyes that it was transformed from sword chi, Yu Yang would have suspected that it was a real giant dragon, a living creature, and not a sword chi that the heavenly sword goddess had casually released. The giant golden dragon soared in the sky, circling above the 9 heavens. Sometimes he could see its head, sometimes he could see its body, sometimes he could see its tail. However, because its body was too big and slender, and its movements were too mysterious, he could not see its full appearance. This golden dragon could soar in the clouds, ride on the fog, hide or hide, appear or see. When it soared, it would break through the blue dome of heaven. When it burrowed, it would return to the 9 earth. Up in the sky, down in the earth, it could move like a snake or swim like a fish. It was unrestrained and unrestrained. It's practically a living creature. Yu Yang could not help but exclaim in admiration. When the heavenly sword goddess heard this, her lips curled into a smile. It was unknown whether she approved or rejected it. She suddenly stretched out her hand and pointed. From the center of Yu Yang's forehead, she gently guided it. Yu Yang felt that his own soul seemed to have separated into an incomparably small body. It also transformed into a small dragon that was as small as a hair. Shaking its head, it swam towards the giant golden dragon. The giant golden dragon opened its mouth and swallowed it whole. In an instant, Yu Yang's entire body shook violently. It was as if his soul had merged with some kind of giant guardian beast. At this moment, he felt that he and the giant golden dragon were one. There was no difference between them. Of course, Yu Yang also understood that this was actually an illusion. The giant golden dragon still existed, and he himself also existed independently. It was just that the two of them had the most intimate connection in their souls, which made them feel as if they were one. No matter what, this Wang Lung Yuan giant golden dragon, created by the heavenly sword goddess, had already become Yu Yang's clone. It was completely under his control. Although the giant golden dragon also had its own nature and consciousness, its dragon soul had merged with Yu Yang's soul. In the future, it would forever be under Yu Yang's control, becoming a miraculous existence that was both one and a part of him. This kind of existence was similar to a guardian beast. It was even more intimate. At first, Yu Yang was pleasantly surprised, but he was still a little confused. Why did the heavenly sword goddess create such a giant dragon for him? Could it be that she knew that he was going to participate in the gods' war, so she created a strong helper for him? That's not right. Didn't she usually want to train herself the most? Without waiting for Yu Yang to understand, the heavenly sword goddess raised her left hand lightly. The parts of Ying Long that were originally placed in Queen Vivian Lee's world of ice and snow in the black hole sealed space were instantly teleported to this dream space. The heavenly sword goddess stretched out her left hand and slowly closed it. Originally, Yu Yang and Princess Qian Qian had estimated that they wouldn't be able to assemble the parts of Ying Long within 3 to 4 months. However, within a few seconds, they had perfectly combined together, turning into the 108-kilometer-long Ying Long Peak Battle Doll that Yu Yang had been looking forward to for a long time. The pinnacle battle doll of Ying Long had already been completed. It was only missing a dragon soul. Yu Yang was ecstatic. His heart was beating 300 times. So the heavenly sword goddess created the giant golden dragon to create a dragon soul for him. Just as he was pleasantly surprised, Yu Yang realized that the heavenly sword goddess's right hand pointed at his heart again. The holy grimoire was summoned involuntarily and floated in front of him. Not only that, Yu Yang realized that when the heavenly sword goddess retracted her hand, there was an extra item in her palm. That was his creation god's orb. The creation god's orb that could only be controlled by Yu Yang was now in the heavenly sword goddess's hands, as if it was her own precious orb. The chaos energy that Yu Yang usually did not dare to touch was taken out by the heavenly sword goddess in an instant. It was as easy as cutting a cake. Yu Yang realized that he could not move in an instant. His spirit and energy seemed to have been sucked dry by something. There was a huge suction force that made him feel weak, which he had not felt for a long time. More than half of the chaos energy was sucked away. His spirit that was on the verge of collapse and his body that was on the verge of fainting were greatly soothed. It was as if a starving person who was on the verge of death had suddenly obtained food. The heavenly sound of the phoenix's cry shook Yu Yang's spirit. It was as if there was a spiritual spring flowing from the bottom of his heart, nourishing his entire heart. Yu Yang did not have the time to raise his head, but he felt that there were traces of the Phoenix sisters flying past his head. Could it be that they had already summoned the divine grimoire? Was the chaos energy needed to summon the divine grimoire? Yu Yang was looking up when he saw the heavenly sword goddess taking out 3/10 of the chaos energy from the divine pearl of creation. It was guided by 3 sword chis. One flew straight to the giant golden dragon above his head and was guided by it. Another flew to the peak-level battle puppet Ying Long. The third drilled into Yu Yang's divine grimoire and filled it with the world that devoured all the energy in the world. The world was like a dried-up machine that was filled with oil. It exploded with a loud rumbling sound, and the range rapidly expanded by 100 times. The newly born ability was shaped like lightning, exploding in Yu Yang's sea of consciousness. Yu Yang felt a headache. He did not have time to digest it. At the top of the sky, the peak-level battle puppet Ing Long that had fused with the giant golden dragon was also changing. The feedback information bombarded Yu Yang's mind crazily, causing Yu Yang to see stars and almost faint. The third sword Qi guided the chaos energy and fused it into Yu Yang's creation domain. The creation domain that was originally 100 meters wide. It rose to 10,000 meters in an instant. Even if it was 1/10 of the chaos energy in the divine pearl of creation, it was still a huge amount of energy that Yu Yang could not fuse with. Now that the three of them were pouring in at the same time, it was naturally difficult for Yu Yang to absorb it. Fortunately, he had the heavenly sword goddess's will to guide him. If it was Yu Yang doing this himself, he would probably explode or die from serious injuries. How vast was the chaos energy? Not to mention 1/10 of the divine pearl of creation, even a trace of it was enough to give birth to a powerful battle beast that was close to the spirit of chaos. If 1,000th of the chaos energy that Yu Yang had fused with was divided, it would be more than enough to raise a false god. Now that the three of them were pouring in at the same time, even if it was not directly poured into the top of his head, it would still make Yu Yang suffer. Yu Yang gritted his teeth and persevered. He knew that if he could get through this, it would be a new breakthrough in his path of cultivation. If he could get through this, it would be the biggest improvement in his sword cultivation. This was an opportunity that others could not even dream of. What Ji Wuri dreamed of was something that they could not obtain, but it was all under his will. Ji Zun. She had the unshakable and indestructible Ji Zun's will. She would definitely succeed. She would not give herself a mission that would never succeed. No matter how difficult it was, she would definitely be able to pass it. No matter how difficult it was, she would definitely be able to pass it. Yu Yang persevered with this belief and endured the pain. He maintained his rationality and consciousness, allowing the vast chaos energy to bombard his sea of consciousness and allow the chaos energy to transform his body and everything else, after an unknown period of time. He felt his body suddenly lighten, as if his entire body had relaxed. His soul that was originally as heavy as a shackle instantly became extremely light, as if his entire body was about to float. Under this kind of relief, Yu Yang felt a little uncomfortable. As soon as his mind relaxed, his consciousness could not help but erupt like a flood. In the end, he could no longer bear it and went berserk. Rumble. It had been a long time since the Destiny's true body appeared. Its body was taller than a mountain, and its head could not be seen. Under the pressure of the Destiny's true body, everyone would be restricted and unable to move. Even the powerful enemy of the Sun King was the same. However, this kind of pressure was ineffective against the heavenly sword goddess. She did not feel anything, and even Koki no Koki, who was beside her, was not affected at all. She was not afraid at all. Instead, she curiously raised her small face and looked up at the unknown height of the golden body. The heavenly sword goddess seemed to be unwilling to see Yu Yang lose his rationality and go berserk. She stretched out her hand and gently brushed Yu Yang's face. Destiny's true body. In an instant, she returned to Yu Yang's body. Meanwhile, Yu Yang's consciousness also returned to its original calm and serene state. Because of the excessive overdraft and the repeated extreme changes, Yu Yang did not have the time to wake up and fell into a deep sleep. A smile appeared on the heavenly sword goddess's lips. She passed the slowly collapsing Yu Yang to Koki no Koki to carry him. He stepped on the void and flew away like a celestial. In the sky, the 108-kilometer-long winged dragon seemed to have a life of its own. It suddenly came to life and opened its eyes. It flew down from the top of the 9 heavens, opened its mouth and spat out a dragon pearl with a diameter of 100 meters. It wrapped Yu Yang inside it and picked him up gently. The dragon's head pierced through the space barrier and headed towards the unknown void. At the same time, the Holy Grimoire and the Divine Grimoire, which was thousands of times more brilliant than the Holy Grimoire, closed together and turned into countless golden lights. They returned to Yu Yang's sea of consciousness and continued to sleep before he summoned them. Chapter 1176. When Yu Yang opened his eyes, he found himself in Queen Vivian Li's ice palace. How did he come back? How did he come here? Don't look at me, I don't know what happened. Empress Fei Wenli was in an extremely good mood. Her beautiful and peerless body was half leaning on Yu Yang's body. Her expression was a little mischievous, which was rarely seen, and her face was full of smiles. I only know that Yoring Long, which was originally scattered and fragmented, flew out. When it came back, it turned into a living giant dragon. Of course, that is not the change that I am most concerned about. Little fellow, you seem to have comprehended some incredible secret. Why don't you tell me the truth? She did not wait for Yu Yang to answer and kissed him. Cherry lips sealed, blazing, passion like fire, burning ceaselessly. Her Majesty Queen Vivian Li had always taken the initiative. She would never be shy like other people. That kind of girlish attitude was not her style. If it was someone else, Yu Yang might immediately turn around and fight for the initiative. However, facing Her Majesty Queen Vivian Li, it was difficult for him to have such an opportunity. Because when she kissed, she would usually crazily plunder the purest innate qi in Yu Yang's body to replenish her body's needs. Every time, Yu Yang would be sucked dry by Her Majesty until she wanted to die. Her limbs would become weak, and she would not be able to take the initiative at all. This time, Yu Yang thought it would be the same as before. Who knew that it would be totally out of his expectations? Queen Vivian Li's lips were only burning with passion. There was no longer the crazy plundering from before. Their lips and tongues were entwined. Yu Yang's mind was intoxicated. He hugged Her Majesty with both of his hands, and unknowingly took the initiative, pressing her under his body instead. His wolfish claws habitually moved around the fragrant snow jade body, causing Her Majesty to pant uncontrollably, her sensitive demon body trembling continuously. Their passion was like a tide. Just as Her Majesty was pressing her beloved wolfish against her chest, preparing to eat the world's best red plum fruit. Unbeknownst to him, a small head had appeared beside him and was looking at him curiously. His eyes were wide and unblinking. Children are not allowed to watch. Queen Vivian Li accidentally discovered it and jumped in shock. Unable to hold back her embarrassment, she hurriedly pushed Yu Yang, who was buried in the snow, away. She hurriedly pulled up her bra and hugged the little Lamia lowly, who had been watching from the side for a long time. She lovingly kissed her and patiently educated her darling. In the future, when Mummy and Daddy train together, you can't just watch from the side. My baby, you're still too young. Some of the cultivation methods are secret and can only be implemented when you grow up. So, you can't run out like this in the future. It's very easy to disturb your parents' cultivation. Do you understand? NN. Little Wenli didn't really understand, but she had always been obedient, so she nodded and agreed. Actually, the sickly beauty and Luohua city mistress had also said similar things to her before. Yu Yang and everyone else's lovers and husband and wife pair training. She could see these things often and was curious about them, but she usually wouldn't come out to disturb them. The reason why she came out when Queen Vivian Li and Yu Yang were together was because she felt that Queen Vivian Li was her closest mother. She didn't feel that it was an influence, and she had a natural instinct to imitate her mother. Queen Vivian Li also understood that little Wenli was still young and didn't understand these things. She smiled and kissed her, and then it was over. She did not immediately send Xiao Wenli back to the grimoire world. Instead, she handed her over to Yu Yang and let him carry her first. Then, she personally made a sumptuous dinner for Xiao Wenli. After that, she sat the little darling in the middle and fed her as they chatted and laughed. She didn't seem like an empress, but more like a gentle mother. She doted on her precious daughter, making the little fellow beam with joy. Yu Yang never thought that Queen Vivian Li would have such a side to her. Not long after, the little serpent demon Loli, who was greatly satisfied, fell asleep in Her Majesty's arms, breathing softly. You don't need innate qi anymore? Yu Yang knew that Queen Vivian Li had long recovered her perfect body, but because her realm had surpassed her own, and because she was in the black hole space creating the world of ice and snow, her divine power had been greatly consumed. Every time Yu Yang came in, she would crave for his innate qi to replenish her. Now that she suddenly didn't need it, Yu Yang was a little surprised. Could it be that she had also comprehended a new realm? Actually when you came in, your body was full of chaotic energy. Without your consciousness controlling it, it was dissipating naturally. I was afraid of wasting it, so I took a few breaths. Queen Vivian Li said. Yu Yang suddenly understood. No wonder this serpent demon empress was full of energy, she had secretly eaten it. Since that was the case, Yu Yang naturally wouldn't be courteous. He reached out and hugged Her Majesty, kissing her lips, wanting to take back the debt of being kissed secretly. Queen Vivian Li didn't resist, but instead took the initiative and pulled Yu Yang down under her body. Yu Yang tried his best to fight back, but he couldn't. The proud empress kissed him passionately from above. The two of them engaged in a battle of words, fighting endlessly. For a moment they were evenly matched, and it was hard to tell who would come out on top, just when a certain wolf's wolf claws sneaked into Yu Yang's bosom and climbed over the mountain peaks to steal the celestial fruit. Suddenly, Her Majesty bit him. The tip of his tongue hurt. He immediately realized that haste makes waste, so he hurriedly started to behave himself. The exploration team stopped moving forward, pretending that they didn't have any intention to invade, but their actions were still shameless. Even when Her Majesty extended her hand to chase them away, they still persisted in not leaving. They slowly wandered under the snowy peak, suppressing their impatience and waiting for a good opportunity. In the midst of the passionate kiss, a certain wolf had unknowingly turned the tables. Her Majesty's body became softer and softer, gradually losing ground. In the end, she fell from her high and mighty throne and fell into her lover's embrace. Unknowingly, she had already become intoxicated with love, her face red as if it was burning. The wolf's wolf claws army's sudden attack succeeded in reaching the summit. Just when he was about to taste the celestial fruit, he suddenly heard a dragon's roar from outside the snow palace. Her Majesty's mind was shaken, and she immediately bit him hatefully, turning over and sitting up. Damn, at such an important moment! Yu Yang's heart was filled with hatred. His best opportunity was ruined by a dragon's roar. Wasn't Ying Long a battle puppet? Why would it roar? And why did it have to roar now? Maybe those little lovers of yours saw that you were missing and were burning with anxiety, calling for you to return. Queen Vivian Li was very smart, she guessed correctly. Then we can continue after I return. Yu Yang was insatiable as he raised this request. No. Her Majesty rejected him flatly. Yu Yang felt dizzy. Why did things always become complicated at the most important moment? If you perform well in the God's War, I will consider if I should reward you with a small kiss. Queen Vivian Li naturally wouldn't disappoint him, and promised him this condition. When Yu Yang heard this, his fighting spirit immediately increased by 1,000 times. He would let Black Day and Ji Worry go to hell. Whoever dared to block his blissful sexual life, he would kill them all. Seeing this brat's exaggerated wolf blood boiling, Her Majesty couldn't help but smile sweetly. After bidding farewell to Her Majesty, Yu Yang returned to his own grimoire world. He still hadn't stabilized himself. Bing Er cried and ran into his embrace. The next one to rush over was Yu Yu. She opened her arms and hugged him tightly together with Bing Er. Big drops of hot tears fell on his shoulder. Xiao San, you scared me to death. You are not allowed to scare people like this in the future. Yu Yang was stunned. What the hell? What exactly happened? He raised his head and looked carefully. he realized that Fallen Beauty and little Anan who were running towards him had tear stains on their faces. Even the strongest Princess Sisai's eyes were slightly red, as if she had cried before. Impatience and Southern Demon King pretended to be calm and smiled, but anyone could see that they were panicking. They pretended to be relaxed and teased everyone. We said it would be fine. This brat is always like this. He would do something to scare everyone. What happened? Yu Yang was extremely confused. Didn't he just enter the dream realm to ask the heavenly sword goddess for advice? Why was everyone crying? Not long ago, the entire grimoire world went dark. All of our spirit ribbons lost contact with you. We thought you scared us to death. Xiao-san, you scared us to death. Yu was sobbing. Everyone knew that once the grimoire world collapsed, it meant the death of its owner. The grimoire world that had lost its contract would return to chaos. Moreover, everyone's spirit was connected to Yu Yang. Even if they didn't try to spy on him, they could still vaguely sense his existence. Once they lost this connection, coupled with the darkness of the grimoire world, they all suspected that something had happened to Yu Yang. That was why they were so scared. No one knew that it was the process of Yu Yang receiving the chaos energy and fusing with it. The vast chaos energy, the most special guardian beast world in the grimoire, the expansion of his creation domain, and even the fusion of Yu Yang's soul with the golden giant dragon created by the heavenly sword goddess. All of these were coincidences. But it was also because of this that everyone was scared out of their wit. Later on, Yu Yang broke through to a new realm. The grimoire world regained its brightness in an instant. Furthermore, there was a huge change. The entire grimoire world was renewed. Only then did everyone gradually calm down. Everyone quietly waited for Yu Yang's return. But after waiting for a long time, there was still no sign of him. Yu and the others were worried that he would have a huge breakthrough and advance to the godly realm. Then, he would enter the Eastern Immortal Tribes world or the Heaven realm and never return to the trial grounds or Tong Tian Tower. If it wasn't for the previous fright, everyone would still be full of confidence and think that it wouldn't be like that. But after the fright, their minds were in chaos. Everyone waited for a long time, but Yu Yang didn't return. Bing Er even cried out loud, desperately calling for her brother to return. Coincidentally, little Wenli was sleeping soundly and didn't hear her call, so she couldn't respond. If it wasn't for the world that had evolved from the same source to contact Ying Long, the latter roared and reminded Yu Yang, Bing Er's tears would have drowned the grimoire world. After listening to everyone's narration, Yu Yang felt ashamed and touched at the same time. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a wolf's heart and was entangled with the Empress, everyone wouldn't be shocked again and again. He hurriedly promised everyone, no matter what happens, I won't leave alone. Without you guys, I won't go anywhere. Even if I'm captured and sealed, after thousands of years, I will return to everyone's side again. Xiao-san, don't talk nonsense. Yu reached out her hand to cover his mouth. You can't say anything good or bad, you can't say nonsense casually, it's enough that you have the heart. Yes, I was wrong, I was wrong. Yu Yang hurriedly raised his hands in surrender. Stupid brother. Bing Er looked at him and immediately smiled through her tears. Her tears were wiped away, and the panic dissipated. Smiles returned to everyone's faces. After the twists and turns, everyone's hearts had unknowingly become closer and more closely connected. Seeing this scene, Sickly Beauty, who was the calmest, smiled and muttered softly, Did you see that? Without you by his side, he will always make a mess of things. You better wake up quickly, he can't do without you, especially in the God's War. He can't do without you. Inside the house, Shui Wuxia, who had been quietly lying on the bed, seemed to have moved her eyelashes ever so slightly. Chapter 1177. After comforting Bing Er and the others with great difficulty, Yu Yang originally wanted to talk to everyone about his understanding of breaking through the new realm. Sickly Beauty reminded him. Too much time had been wasted. If they didn't set off now, the gods' war would have already started. If Yu Yang didn't plan to disguise himself as the southwest god Sha Feng, it didn't matter when the gods' war started, as long as it didn't end. But now he couldn't, and he had also received Akaji's dragon swallowing and divine power. It would be unreasonable if he didn't help. If he was late, the East God Deicide would most likely die, or at least he would be hit by Tenchu's sneak attack, which was completely contrary to Yu Yang's overall plan. Therefore, Yu Yang temporarily suppressed the idea of sharing the new realm with everyone. He bid farewell to everyone and left the grimoire world. When he understood the situation, there was plenty of time. Then he returned to meet with everyone. The Dragon Ball, that was definitely not a real Dragon Ball, and the fully evolved Yinglong. He didn't have time to check it now. He didn't even have time to look at the world that he could see when he opened the grimoire. Yu Yang directly took out the quasi-divine weapon, Spiral Fang, that he had collected from Sha Feng. He returned to the mountain outside the mountain. The combination of counterfeit, inherent skill, phantom shadow and a creation domain was enough to confuse the eyes of the world. In addition to the Dragon Pearl, that contained the sand wind divine power and the essence of knowledge, he even had the unique divine weapon the Spiral Tooth, that was forcefully subdued by the Nirvana flame. Yu Yang believed that even the Western God Lord, Heizhou, who had a good relationship with him for 10,000 years, would not be able to see through his identity. Now that he had the identity of Sha Feng as a cover and the newly comprehended true dragon realm, Yu Yang's confidence in killing Ji Wuri was greatly increased. If possible, Yu Yang even wanted to kill the West god Black Day. If Black Day died, it would definitely be a great loss to the central shrine. On the contrary, if he were alive, then, if he wanted to attack the central shrine in the future, this Black Day would definitely be a big obstacle. Yu Yang didn't want to have such a troublesome small boss beside him when he attacked the central shrine and fought against the ultimate big boss, the Temple Supreme. Teleportation after teleportation, 100 miles in a single thought. Yu Yang spared no effort in making his way to the East God Nation's the Storm Stronghold. Storm Fortress. At this moment, the place was filled with the elite warriors of the Eastern camp. There were simply too many of them, and there was an endless stream of reinforcements. Marshal Wind Ear requested the Eastern camp to set up camp at the rear of the Eye Fort. Many oracles and divine generals were worried that they might be spies sent by the Western camp. Thus, they tried their best to move these people away from the storm and to a valley 60 kilometers away as backup troop. Coincidentally, the space pirates were also arranged to camp in this valley. They were not many in number, but they were notorious. If not for the assurances of Marshal Wind Ear and Marshal Griffin, the divine generals in charge of receiving them would not have dared to treat these fellows, who had been wanted criminals not too long ago, as allies. If Wind Eagle, Winged Tiger, and Fiery Bird had been more high-profile and driven the original Pelican, which had been modified by Yu Yang and given the name Big Swan, to the skies above the storm, the space pirates would definitely not have been treated this way. Wind Eagle and the others did not do this. Firstly, they wanted to keep a low profile. They did not want to use the captured Big Swan to slap the Southeast God Nation's troops in the face. Secondly, it was a strategic necessity. This Big Swan could be used as a surprise attack. At a crucial moment, it could be used to launch a surprise attack on the enemy. In truth, the East God Nation, the Southern God Nation, and the Southeast God Nation's fleets were all lying in ambush. They did not reveal their true whereabouts. Those commanders who openly displayed their strategic intentions to the enemy were all idiot. No one would do that. Unless there was a huge imbalance in strength between the two sides, with one side bullying the weak and the strong bullying the weak, they would definitely win the battle. In addition, the commanding officer was a vain and prideful person. Perhaps that was why he was so complacent. Otherwise, normal people would not be so stupid. I hate this starved dog ridge. I hate this valley even more. I hate everything here. Pelican, who had been left behind by Wind Eagle and the others to lead the team in the valley, missed the lavish life he had on Big Swan not long ago. That kind of life was a dream. Every day, he did not have to do anything. He did not even have to use his brain. Countless Xuanwu guards would prepare all the food and drinks for the galactic pirates to eat and drink to their heart's content. There would never be a single Xuanwu guard who would complain. They were even more diligent than worker bees and more orderly than ants. After leaving Big Swan, Pelican realized that he had never had a satisfying meal on the surface. It was always that damned bread that was harder than stone. It was always that big pot of stew made by the army cooks who had no sense of taste. If he ate a cockroach in the stew, and not a rat that had been dead for God knows how long, he would be considered lucky. Bear with it. We are not here to enjoy ourselves. We are here to fight. Raven could not stop comforting him. In truth, this sentence had been used by countless people to comfort others, or even themselves. If this continues, I suspect that I will starve to death here instead of dying on the battlefield. Grasshopper complained desperately. Shut up, you traitor and captive. Pelican patted him hard. It's fine if you say I'm a captive, but how can you say that I'm a traitor? Grasshopper was very angry. When the 5 villains and General Wu Guan attacked Gannett, they had gone through thick and thin together. Later, he would rather not go back to Lord Mao's side and stay with these drunken galactic pirates who had not taken a bath for half a month. What was he doing? It was just that he thought it was good to hang out with them and was quite happy. Now he was talking about traitors. How annoying. Was there such a stupid traitor in the world? I'm not wrong. Your stance is indeed not firm. You even betrayed Lord Titan. It's just that Lord Titan did not care about a traitor like you. Maybe on the battlefield, you will join the enemy again when you see that the situation is not good. Therefore, I have to keep a close eye on you. If you really have any bad intentions, I will definitely kill you. Although that was what the Pelican said, that was not what he meant in his heart. He used his giant arms to lock Big Brother's neck and pretended to torture him, but he quickly let go and laughed. Of course, you haven't betrayed us yet, so I'll give you a chance to be a good person. Come, let's have a drinking contest. If you lose, then you might be a traitor. Bullsh *T. How can I be a traitor if I lose? Grasshopper was speechless. If I say you are, then you are. If you don't dare to drink, then you have a guilty conscience. The Pelican patted Big Brother's shoulder hard and burst into laughter, dragging the bad guy who had joined halfway but refused to be a space pirate down the mountain. They had a drinking competition and did not stop until they were drunk. Isn't it just drinking? I'm not afraid of you. I am the famous god of wine in the Southeast Pantheon. Grasshopper's shortcoming was that he liked to brag. Of course, good wine was also his shortcoming. Seeing the two of them going down to drink to relieve their boredom, Raven stood quietly on the rock. He frowned slightly. He was not worried about whether Grasshopper was a traitor or whether he would betray them again. For someone like Grasshopper, even if he was 100 or 1,000 times stronger, he would not be able to affect the situation at all, let alone now. Furthermore, if it really reached the point where Grasshopper would betray them, it would be too late. At that time, not only Grasshopper, many others would become traitors, including his comrades in the Galactic Pirate. They might not be able to hold on until the end. This was not what Raven was worried about. What he was most troubled about was how to use his strength and that of the Galactic Pirates to help the Eastern Camp, Deicide, Titan U, Wind Eagle, Wing Eagle, Fiery Bird, and the others. If there was no Cygnus, Raven would not think of anything else. He would just compete with Pelican in drinking, because his strength was destined to not be able to affect the situation of the war. But now, he had a Cygnus that was not inferior to the largest suspending mothership in the outer mountains, Dragon Eagle and Kuan Pung. There were hundreds of Xuanwu guards, dozens of Xuanwu giants, and 5 Xuanwu spirits. As long as he commanded them properly, they would definitely be a force that could affect the situation of the war. At the very least, they could affect the local strategy. Lord Titan, you might return very soon. We just need to wait for his news. There is no need to think too much. In addition, I heard that the Southwest God Master Shafeng, the Northwest God Master Frostcold, and the North God Lord Zhao she had once tried to kill the Southeast God Master Akaji, but they did not succeed. When the Southeast God Master Akaji broke out of the encirclement, he even heavily injured the Southwest God Master Shafeng with the help of the South God Master Tencho. Although the Southeast God Master Akaji was also injured, this news boosted the morale of the entire army. The three gods of the Western camp could not even deal with the Southeast God Master. Moreover, there was the North God Master who had a higher status and strength. Now that the Southwest God Master Shafeng is heavily injured, and the Northeast God Master Qingyun is not involved, he might even secretly help us. Our Eastern camp is not at a disadvantage, so there is no need to worry too much about the war. Moreover, this is not what we want. The lords are in charge. Unexpectedly, it was Spotted Duck who stood behind Raven and comforted him. Where did you get this news? Raven was very happy at first, but he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. A bad feeling flashed through his heart. It is everywhere in and out of the camp. Who doesn't know? Spotted Duck shook his head, indicating that he did not know who had spread the news first. Then it is fine. Raven laughed at himself. This was obviously good news, but he also felt that it was a conspiracy. Could it be that he was too sensitive or that he was too involved in the war? He waved his hand to send Spotted Duck away. Raven returned to his tent with a slightly relaxed mood. Before sleeping, he still remembered this good news, but he felt that it was too unreal. Was the Southeast God Master Akaji really that brave? Maybe Akaji was also seriously injured, but kept it a secret. Maybe the South God Master Tencho came to his rescue in time. Maybe the East God Master Deicide was also dispatched. Raven decided not to think about it anymore. Before Titan Yu returned or sent an order, he decided to rest well, conserve his energy, and prepare to welcome the God War in his best state under Titan Yu's leadership. He should be able to create a glorious result by following behind that young man who could constantly create miracles. After waking up, Raven felt that he was full of energy. Just as he was about to get up, he suddenly spotted Duck entered the tent with a joyful expression. He reported mysteriously, "My lord, I have already inquired about it. The news was first spread by the prophet. The prophet is the second state preceptor under the East God Master Deicide. He is usually secretive, and does not show himself until the God War broke out. Only then did this Lord Prophet become known to the world. You don't know, but this news is absolutely true. The Storm Fortress also sent messengers back to announce this good news, but they did not mention it earlier than the prophet. Oh right, the prophet is currently selecting the lucky ones in the camp. It is said that the East God Master Deicide, in order to increase the strength of his side, constantly used the ancient divine power to enhance the Eastern camp's soldiers with attributes and potential. Now, the prophet is testing everyone. Haha, you definitely don't know, but that lucky guy Grasshopper was actually chosen by the prophet. What? When Raven heard this good news, not only was he not happy, but he was also scared out of his wits. Chapter 1178. When Raven rushed out of the tent and returned to the main camp, he found that the place was decorated with lanterns and streamers and livestock were being slaughtered in celebration. Even the know-it-all Spotted Duck had no idea what was going on. He had to find someone to ask. Only then did he find out that the first batch of lucky fellows who had obtained the ancient divine power, led by a prophet called Forget-Not, had ambushed a temporary scouting outpost of the Western camp in the morning. They had killed 6 elite scouts of the Western camp on the spot and captured 4. Now that they had returned to the main camp with the captives, Everyone was celebrating them and showing off their victory in the first battle. Fort the Storm was currently in a defensive state. Everyone was holed up inside the fort. Even the regular army, including the Eastern god Lord Deicide's most powerful Blood Legion and the Southern god Lord Tenchu's Mad Demon Slaughterer Legion, had not achieved even the slightest bit of victory during the confrontation between the two armies. Yet, it was the volunteer army and mercenaries that everyone looked down on and were most wary of that had made a good start and gained the first drop of blood. How could this not make everyone go wild with joy? As soon as the first batch of lucky fellows returned, they were immediately welcomed by the entire volunteer army. Whether it was the volunteer mercenaries from the divine nation of the Northeast, the bandits and thieves from all over, or the galactic pirates who had just become friends, all of them rejoiced and their morale was greatly boosted. As for the previously low-key prophet, they worshipped him even more. Everyone felt that this state preceptor was second only to the Eastern God Master, the God-Slayer. If he hadn't used his primordial divine power to enhance the strength of the rebel army, even if the rebel army were 100 times stronger, they still wouldn't have been able to kill the elite scouts of the Western camp, much less capture 4 of them. My lord, did you hear that? Those whose original attributes were not suitable or their potential were not enough can still participate in the second round of selection. The prophet has decided to personally dig out everyone's potential and hidden attribute. He is determined not to leave anyone out. Haha, I still have a chance. I knew that the depression would soon pass and the future success will belong to me. Once I'm chosen, that brat grasshopper won't be able to make fun of me anymore. Who knows, my hidden potential might be even higher than his. Spotted Duck was so excited when he got back from the news that he was dancing with joy. Our people also have to participate in the test? Raven's face turned green and he broke out in cold sweat. That's not good enough. My lord, it's not just our men, it's not just our brothers, it's the entire camp, everyone. Everyone has decided to participate in Lord Prophet's test. Spotted Duck laughed and shook his head. Where's Pelican? Raven noticed that the drunkard wasn't by his side. Sir Santon has already participated in the test. My lord, you might not know this. Once the ancient divine power is upgraded, the weakest one will become a god's envoy. Those with better potential can even become a god's general. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Unless you're a fool, otherwise no one will miss it. Lord Blackleaf, let's go. I can't wait to become a god's general. Even if I can't become one, becoming a god's envoy would be good too. Grasshopper is said to have the potential to become a god's envoy. His nose is almost in the sky. I can't lose to him. Spotted Duck was getting more and more excited as he spoke. He pulled Raven forward. Spotted Duck, help me back to the tent to rest first. Raven wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and gritted his teeth. He seemed to have made an important decision in his heart. This, all right. Spotted Duck's heart had already flown to the prophet's testing hall. However, he noticed that Lord Raven seemed to be unwell. Naturally, he did not dare to delay and hurriedly helped him back. Usually, Raven would become extremely weak and painful for a period of time every 3 to 4 months. Especially when the battle was more intense and his body was more exhausted, the interval between the attacks would be shorter. This was the backlash of his body enduring the forbidden power. There was no cure for it in the mountain beyond mountain. If it wasn't for the ancient broken crystal necklace on his body that could use the godly power contained in it to suppress it, the backlash of the forbidden power would definitely cause his body to explode. Spotted Duck saw that Raven's body was suffering from the forbidden power's backlash more than once or twice. He thought that Raven's body was covered in sweat and his face was pale because of the attack. He even sighed in his heart that it was really not the right time to attack. Before Spotted Duck left, Raven suddenly reminded him, "Spotted Duck, if you have time, remember to come back here and call me after the test. I'm afraid I'll never wake up." Towards this insignificant request, Spotted Duck naturally agreed. Don't worry, Lord Blackleaf. I'll definitely come back. I promised Lord Titan that I'll do the logistics work well. I'll be back soon. It's good that you remember. Raven waved his hand weakly, gesturing for Spotted Duck to go out. After an unknown period of time, Raven, who was lying on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes there was no longer a trace of weakness or pain. Instead, a bright light shot out like a burning flame. He was as agile as a civet and as light as a flying bird. Raven turned over and got off the bed. He hesitated slightly. He took out a fragmented and small fragment of an ancient relic from his bosom. After reaching out a few times, he retracted it. In the end, he let out a long sigh and placed the faintly glowing fragment of an ancient relic on the table. He then changed into a set of black clothes and dressed as a thief. He covered his face with a headscarf and inserted 2 daggers. Faster than lightning, he flew out. After a few leaps, he was already far away from the valley. Raven gradually left the cheering and noisy camp behind him. However, he did not dare to let down his guard. He looked behind him nervously, like a defeated general who kept looking back to see if there were any pursuers. After leaving the valley, Raven finally dared to take a few breaths. Just when he thought that he had escaped from the tiger's den and was preparing to sneak back to the Storm Fortress to discuss countermeasures with Winged Tiger and Wind Eagle, a pair of legs suddenly appeared in front of him. His vision blurred. Boom! Raven felt pain in his face. The next thing he knew was that his entire body was smashed into the rocks of the hill. What a cunning little worm! If it wasn't for Master's cautiousness, I would have been fooled by you. The pair of legs appeared in front of Raven again. Before Raven could open his mouth, the legs stepped on him again. So fast. Raven could not even react in time, let alone his body. Although he tried his best to roll and dodge, it was completely useless. The leg did not step on Raven's head, but it was enough to stomp the lower half of Raven's fleeing body into the mud and stones. Raven endured the pain and looked up. He discovered that the owner of those feet was a man dressed like a nobleman. He was handsome and had the bearing of a noble. His expression was incomparably arrogant, and he looked down at him with a condescending gaze. It was as if he was looking at an ant. Little worm, if you tell me the flaw you've discovered, then I might consider whether I should be merciful enough to grant you a quick death. Jiao Luo Waterfall, 500 kilometers away from the Storm Fortress. The garrison of the Western Camp. Just dozens of kilometers away from the waterfall. Of course, the water city of Jiao Luo Waterfall and the Eastern God Lord's palace next to it had been designated as the resting place of the gods. It was an absolute forbidden area for ordinary soldiers. In the sky, a strange flame suddenly streaked across. When the soldiers of the Southwest God Kingdom saw it, they all cheered and prostrated themselves on the ground. Because they knew that the god they believed in and followed, Sha Feng, had finally arrived. The Southwest God Lord Sha Feng's lateness had caused the soldiers of the Southwest God Kingdom to suffer a lot of complaints from their allies. In particular, there was an inexplicable rumor that the Southwest God Lord Sha Feng had besieged the Southeast God Lord Akaji but failed. Instead, he was seriously injured, which made the soldiers of the Southwest God Lord lose face. Similarly, the Northwest God Lord Frost Cold and the North God Lord Zhao Shi had already arrived at Jiao Luo Waterfall. Moreover, their bodies and divine powers were not damaged at all. They were solemnly welcomed by the West God Lord Black Day. In contrast, the Southwest God Lord Sha Feng had not arrived even after so long. It was really hard to believe. Could it be that the god they believed in and followed had really been seriously injured by Akaji? The soldiers of the entire Southwest God Kingdom were waiting anxiously. Until this moment. When they saw their God Lord stepping on the flame divine light and riding the wind to Jiao Luo Waterfall, they finally felt relieved. It turned out that the previous rumor was not true. The god Lord Sha Feng they believed in and followed was not seriously injured. Instead, he was as heroic and full of divine power as before. Welcome, welcome. Brother Sha Feng really scared me. They all said that you wouldn't come, but I believe that Brother Sha Feng is not the kind of person who goes back on his word. Haha, Brother Sha Feng, you really made us wait for a long time. A ray of black divine light soared into the sky. The whole sky, even if it was a bright day, became dark. A god-level ranker whose face could not be seen clearly and whose true strength could not be seen, rode on the gray fog and black divine light. He was the first to welcome the flame divine light that was shooting towards him. He has come, but I don't know if he is really our ally, God Lord Sha Feng. Another wave of cold air soared and instantly froze the Jiao Luo waterfall. The owner of the cold air coldly questioned the southwest god Lord Sha Feng, who had rushed over, suspecting that he was a fake. If I was a fake deicide, I would kill you first. As a fake, Yu Yang did not feel guilty at all and immediately retorted. Deicide is impossible, because he is not good at disguising. If deicide is really a fake, even a blind person would be able to tell that he is a fake. Moreover, that guy is a stubborn person, he would not use any trick. The North God Lord Zhao Shi appeared. He looked at Yu Yang from head to toe, causing the fake Yu Yang to feel a little apprehensive. In the end, he shook his head and denied it. Humph, of course it is impossible for deicide, but don't forget, there is still the Northeast God Lord Qin Yun. The Northwest God Frost Cold thought that Yu Yang, this Sha Feng, was a fake Qin Yun. Brother Sha Feng is definitely not Qin Yun. The West God Black Day, whose face could not be seen in the black light, echoed Yu Yang's words and pretended to be a good person. The North God Lord Zhao Shi did not say anything and watched quietly from the side. How can you prove that you are not Qin Yun? The Northwest God Frost Cold gave Yu Yang a difficult problem. This question stumped Yu Yang. It was easy to prove that he was Sha Feng because he had Sha Feng's remnant divine power and knowledge. It was not difficult to disguise himself, but how could he prove that he was not Qin Yun? This was really a pain in the ass. Yu Yang did not know anything about Qin Yun, not even a single thing. Chapter 1179. Unable to say anything. Yu Yang's current situation was a bit like a mute person suffering in silence. He really couldn't afford to hurt a person who disguised himself as a spy. How to prove that he was the Southwest God Sha Feng was easy, but how to prove that he wasn't the Northeast God Qin Yun was difficult. However, if he didn't say anything, it would be easy for Black Day, Frost Cold, and Zhao Shi to suspect him. Frost Cold and Black Day could be ignored, but in the face of Zhao Shi, the mysterious and powerful North God, even Yu Yang didn't dare to be too careless. In the entire Outer Mountain, Yu Yang felt that these two people could see through his identity. One was Jiwori. The second was the North God Lord Zhao Shi. If he wanted to impersonate the Southwest God Sha Feng, he had to pass the test of the North God Lord Zhao Shi. Okay, I am Qin Yun. What do you want? Yu Yang smiled coldly. He simply did the opposite and admitted that he was the Northeast God Qin Yun. This greatly exceeded the expectations of Black Day and Frost Cold. Don't be angry. Frost Cold didn't mean to suspect you. He was just joking. Black Day hurriedly smoothed things over. In his opinion, Sha Feng could be impersonated, but the impersonator couldn't be Qin Yun. Because with Qin Yun's ability and character, it was impossible for him to impersonate Sha Feng. Besides, even if Qin Yun planned to impersonate Sha Feng, it was impossible for him to run in front of him and Zhao Shi. In front of Zhao Shi's true Wonder Divine Mirror, who could hide from him? The true Wonder Divine Mirror was a divine artifact that could reflect the truth of the world. Haha, what a funny joke. Yu Yang, who was disguised as Sha Feng, naturally couldn't be too easy to talk to. Anger and rage were the most basic element. If he were to be courteous and gentlemanly and express that it was no big deal, then his acting would immediately be ruined. This was because Sha Feng wasn't a gentlemanly person at all, let alone being graceful. I reserve my opinion. Frost Cold felt that there was something wrong with Sha Feng today, but he couldn't tell what it was. Zhao Shi smiled faintly and did not express his opinion. If that's the case, then I also suspect that you are Deicide's impersonation, Yu Yang immediately retorted. He was actually an expert in making false accusations. Without waiting for Black Day to pretend to be a good person, Yu Yang had already made his move. This was the advantage of pretending to be a boorish person. If he was unhappy, he could turn hostile and make a move on the spot. If he were to pretend to be an official or a politician, then it would be too hard and tiring. Things like conscience were a must, and he would also need to be thick-skinned. Not being shameless was not enough. If he wanted to be a qualified official or politician, being able to lie with his eyes wide open was the most basic requirement. Just a little bit higher, and the acting ability of a movie king was also a basic skill. No matter how much of a genius Yu Yang was, or how outstanding his talent in pretending was, he would definitely not be able to impersonate such a person. Pretending to be a boorish person with a bad temper like Sha Feng was not a problem. He shook his hands. Black Day, Frost Cold and Zhao Shi all felt a kind of raging flame that was filled with anger exploding in the sky. This was not an eruption that would end with the release of an explosion, but a kind of consciously controlled expansion. Flowers of raging flames transformed into flaming roses in the sky. Void floated down. The northeast god, Qin Yun. His moves were fantastical and beautiful. He appeared in the form of flowers and trees. He was a peaceful and benevolent god who did not like to fight. He was compassionate towards all life in the world. He was also the only god among the 8 great gods who did not marry in his life and insisted on practicing asceticism. Among the 8 great gods, if there were any signs of sprouting, flowers blooming and the earth returning to spring, it would definitely be the northeast god, Qin Yun. The northeast god, Qin Yun, owner of the quasi-divine weapon, Heaven's Heart. He was the only god-state expert in Outer Mountain who could use energy to transform flowers and trees. This was his unique trademark. Now, Yu Yang condensed roses with raging flames and fell from the sky. It was a deliberate response to Frost Cold and Black Day. Look, I am Qin Yun. Of course, he could not impersonate Qin Yun. There were many flaws in his disguise. However, this would dispel the doubts in Frost Cold and Black Day's hearts. This move of going against the current and exposing one's shortcomings was many times more effective than denying and trying to prove it. Boring! Frost Cold no longer doubted it. Creating the flaming rose was equivalent to the northeast god, Qin Yun? What a joke! One was the power of life, the other was the power of destruction. They were polar opposites. The flaming rose only looked like a rose, but it was actually a flame. Moreover, it was completely condensed from anger and resentment. Among the 8 gods in the entire Outer Mountain, other than the southwest god, Sha Feng, there would not be a second person with such a violent temper. Frost Cold did not suspect that the Sha Feng that Yu Yang impersonated was Qin Yun. He just felt that something was wrong and deliberately opened his mouth to test it. Yu Yang's Heaven's Fury Fire Lotus transformed version, Heaven's Fury Rose. He dispelled the doubts in his heart. It was indeed Sha Feng. Other than Sha Feng, no one else could manipulate flames like this. Of course, the southeast god, Akaji, was also an expert in manipulating flames. However, Akaji was completely different from Sha Feng. He manipulated dragon flames, an extremely special type of flame. It could be seen at a glance that it could not change its unique attribute. The most important thing was that these flaming rows contained some kind of storm power that was temporarily in a static state. Once triggered, there would be an earth-shattering explosion. This was the true unique ability of Sha Feng. The perfect combination of wind and fire could not be imitated by others. Black Day's doubts were also dispelled at this time, and he laughed out loud. On the contrary, it was Zhao Shi. He frowned slightly, as if he was puzzled. Take this. Yu Yang was afraid that Zhao Shi would see the flaw. In fact, he did not use the power of the combination of wind and fire, but two kinds of flames. One was the transformed version of the Heaven's Fury Fire Lotus, and the other was the completely static Earth Guiyin Fire, faking the combination of wind and fire. With the talent of disguise, coupled with Yu Yang's willpower control, others would definitely not be able to see the difference. However, Zhao Shi, who had the true Wonder Divine Mirror, might be able to see through it. He quickly made his move. Fight was just one word. Sometimes, pestering endlessly was more useful than reasoning. You're crazy. Frost Cold was stunned. What did this guy want to do? Did he want to blow the entire Jiao Luo waterfall area into a sinkhole? The raging flames in the sky condensed under the twisting storm of Yu Yang's consciousness. It transformed into a huge fire sword. It stabbed down at Frost Cold. Unstoppable! This time, Yu Yang impersonated the Eastern God Lord Deicide. He had never seen the Eastern God Lord Deicide, nor did he know the unique skill of the Eastern God Lord Deicide, but he had already obtained some basic information from the previous intelligence. For example, the Eastern God Lord Deicide used a sword, was a sword god, and possessed the strongest ancient sword in the outer mountains, hatred. Yu Yang, who was originally good at sword chi, was of course easier to impersonate. The fire sword in front of Frost Cold slammed down from the sky. His eyes could not help but turn cold. Raise your hand. There were thousands of frost flowers blooming. Dozens of ice chains intertwined and shot into the air, meeting the sword, frantically wrapping around the blade, pulling and twisting the fire sword. Break for me. Yu Yang stepped on the blade, his fists smashing all the entangled ice chains. His body erupted with extremely fierce scarlet heaven divine flame, increasing the power of the sword by 100 times, directly piercing the Frost Cold below. Sha Feng, you madman! Frost Cold was also angry at this time. Although they were both in the western camp, but Sha Feng was never a god state ranker that he looked up to. According to the ranking in Frost Cold's mind, the southwest god lord Sha Feng, this ally, was ranked last among the 8 god lords, not even comparable to the southeast god lord Akaji and the northeast god lord Qin Yun. As for him, the northwest god lord, his strength could almost be compared to the south and north god lords. The only difference was that the treasure in his hand was not a divine weapon. He was ranked in the top 5. How could he look at the 8th-ranked Sha Feng seriously? At this time, seeing Sha Feng turn hostile and attack him, his heart was filled with anger. Do you think I'm afraid of you, Sha Feng? Thinking of this, Frost Cold did not hesitate and rushed to the sky. Thousands of hailstones gathered to form a shield, which was 10 times bigger than the fire sword, as thick as a city wall and smashed over. Compared to the mysterious ice wall shield created by Frost Cold, the fire sword condensed by Yu Yang was naturally inferior. But if the two collided, it was enough to raise the entire Jiao Luo waterfall area to the ground. Others could not interfere, but as the head of the western camp, the West God Lord Black Day had to intervene in this battle. As the boss, he also had the intention to show off. The world instantly turned dark. It was as if a prehistoric beast opened its mouth that could swallow the world, and swallowed the world in one gulp. Including Yu Yang and Frost Cold in the battlefield, they felt a kind of unbearable dizziness, but just a second later, the world returned to light and everything was as before. It was just that the fiery sword and ice shield that were about to collide and explode had already disappeared without a trace. It was very clear that Black Day had used his unique divine power to instantly dissolve the fiery sword and ice shield. In a second, he had completely swallowed the fiery sword and ice shield without making a sound or a trace. The strength of the Western God Master, Black Day, had indeed reached a shocking realm. Yu Yang and Frost Cold stopped at the same time. Black Day also appeared in time, one hand holding onto Yu Yang, the other holding onto Frost Cold. His extraordinary appearance that surpassed all the emperors in the world, coupled with his innate heroism, made anyone, including the God Realm experts, admire him. Two brothers, listen to this old brother's advice: do not fight, otherwise it will be a great misfortune for our western camp. Brother Shafeng, you are not an enemy. Brother Frost Cold also has no evil intentions, you are just being cautious. I understand your intentions. Here, I, this unqualified big brother, will apologize to you two brothers. If I had taken the time to participate in the battle, Brother Shafeng would not have been injured, and the journey would not have been delayed, and there would not have been such a misunderstanding today. Come, it is rare for us to get together, let's go down and enjoy ourselves. If you want to fight, let's decide who is better in the wine field. Black Day acted as a mediator in time, and the power of his attack also shocked Frost Cold and Yu Yang, the fake Shafeng. Shafeng, you really can't let your emotions affect your decisions. Zhao Shi also helped to persuade him. Yu Yang was speechless. Why did it sound like there was a hidden meaning in their words? Frost Cold snorted. His attitude softened, and he no longer fought tit for tat with the Shafeng that Yu Yang had impersonated. Instead, he was thinking about the result of the collision between his ice shield and the flaming sword. It was certain that he was slightly superior, but Shafeng still had such strength after being heavily injured by the Chiqiu. It seemed that he had underestimated this Southwest Divine Lord. Black Day was originally a little worried that Shafeng, who would be used to gang up on Deicide later, would be injured and his combat power would be affected. Now that he looked at it, although this cannon fodder was not as good as before, when it came to fighting, it was still not bad. Others naturally did not know that he, who had swallowed the ice shield and fire sword, actually did not feel good. In order to save face, he only used a second to dissolve the ice shield and fire sword. On the surface, his body was fine, but his soul almost went through the two heavens of ice and fire. He knew about Frost Cold's freezing divine power, so naturally, he did not feel good. But he did not expect that Shafeng's fire sword would also have unexpected power, and almost made a fool of him on the spot. The stronger the cannon fodder to gang up on Deicide, the higher the success rate. Naturally, Black Day was even happier. Of course, on the surface, he was amiable and approachable. One could not tell that he was about to push Yu Yang's fake Shafeng and Frost Cold to death at all. On the contrary, he was passionate and heroic, just like a big brother welcoming his own brother, with a face full of smiles. What's the use of being careful? It's 4 against 1, and there's a hidden pawn in our hands. If we still can't beat Deicide like this, then we might as well hide at home and nurse our children, so that we don't have to come out and embarrass ourselves. Yu Yang expressed that his anger had not completely subsided. At the same time, he purposely leaked some information out of anger, making Black Day very nervous. He hurriedly cleared his throat and coughed, stopping Yu Yang from continuing. Tenchu's hidden pawn must not be leaked until the last moment. Although this was his own territory, this kind of thing must not be said. Fortunately, other than the 4 of them, no one else heard it. Otherwise, he would have killed everyone to prevent future troubles. What do you know? Deicide is definitely not an enemy that you and I imagine. No matter what, Frost Cold always had a respectful heart towards Deicide. This was something that could not be seen even on Black Day. That's right, Brother Frost Cold is right. Even if we have a chance of winning, we still have to be cautious. Black Day agreed on the surface, but he was a little unhappy in his heart. Frost Cold was very respectful towards him. But compared to the reverence that came from the bottom of one's heart, there was actually a difference. Of course, this was because Frost Cold had a clear understanding of Deicide's strength. This was a good thing. If Frost Cold was like Sha Feng and felt that he would definitely win, then things would not be good. Hence, no matter how jealous Black Day was, he had to show a smiling face to affirm. It was precisely because Deicide had the absolute number one position in the outer mountains that Black Day wanted to replace him no matter what. The Eastern God Lord, Deicide, must be killed. As long as he existed, the extraordinary position of the outer mountains number one would never fall on the shoulders of others. Yu Yang had already successfully infiltrated the western camp by pretending to be Sha Feng. Although he was still a little worried about Zhao Shi, after seeing Black Day and Frost Cold, he had already dispelled his doubts. He had barely managed to muddle through this obstacle. The next step was to think of a way to pass a message to Deicide that he could accept and believe. If Deicide still trusted Tencho and Jiwuri, who was pretending to be Akaji, then no matter how strong and awesome he would still be defeated and killed by a sneak attack. Tencho and Jiwuri, these two fellows together, were even more frightening than Frost Cold and Zhao Shi. Once the sneak attack succeeded, Deicide would definitely have no hope of survival. What Yu Yang needed to think about now was how to break through the obstacles in this predicament, go against the heavens, and save this battle that was destined to be lost. Fortunately, he had finally taken the first step to success by fighting his way into the western camp. Otherwise, there would be no need to fight the next battle. Yu Yang deliberately looked at Zhao Shi and found that this northern god lord was calm and unperturbed. He temporarily suppressed his thoughts. Perhaps this northern god lord, who had the true wonder divine mirror, had not seen through the flaws. Perhaps he had seen through it, but it didn't matter if he didn't say it. In fact, if the northern god lord Zhao Shi had seen through the flaws, it would be a great thing. However, Yu Yang could not be sure. He could not be sure that the northern god lord Zhao Shi would not speak at the most crucial moment. Everything was still to be seen. Sometimes, the truth would only be revealed at the end. It was still too early. Chapter 1180. The good days of eating and drinking had passed for 3 days. Although He Dai was very hospitable, Yu Yang was constantly being monitored. Not to mention informing the god killer, even if he sneezed secretly, there would be people paying attention to him. Compared to Yu Yang, the southwest god Sha Feng, the north god lord Zhao Shi had more freedom. Even the situation of the northwest god lord, Shuang Han, was much better. After all, the Sha Feng that Yu Yang had impersonated was the cannon fodder that He Du had prepared to use to kill the god killer. He was a disposable item that would be discarded after use. Who would care about his feelings? As long as Sha Feng didn't retreat before killing the god killer, it would be fine. Whether he, the cannon fodder, lived or died was not important at all. If it was necessary, even if Sha Feng survived, he would still get rid of him, so that he wouldn't have to share more of the profits. The one who had a different fate than the Sha Feng that Yu Yang was impersonating was the northern god lord, Zhao Shi. He Zhou sincerely wanted to please her. Zhao Shi, who had the true wonder divine mirror, could not be killed. He would know as soon as he thought about it. Moreover, he was an important help in killing Deicide. Without Zhao Shi, it was almost impossible to kill Deicide. Under certain circumstances, Zhao Shi was 3 times more important than Tencho, who was undercover. In Black Day's mind, the North God Lord Zhao Shi was the most useful. If he was sacrificed in the siege, it would be the biggest waste and failure. The management of the mountains outside the mountains and the valley, as well as the annexation of the eastern camp after the war, could be handed over to the North God Lord Zhao Shi. This North God was definitely the best and most suitable God state ranker to be a manager. As long as Deicide was killed, after Black Day became the number 1, he would definitely pursue a higher realm, and there would be no time to be distracted in management. The same was true for the South God Tencho. Thus, from the very beginning, Black Day had sought out the Northern God Master, Zhao Shi, to discuss his conditions. Black Day wanted to be the number one person in the mountains outside the mountains and take over everything from Deicide. As for the mountains outside the mountains and the valley, it would be personally managed by Zhao Shi, and Black Day would not interfere. As for the other southern god master, Tian Chou, he requested to enjoy the divine vanquishing secret realm for 10 years and focus on searching for the ancient secret. After 10 years, he would return it to Zhao Shi and Shuang Han. Only the pitiful Sand Wind, who was destined to become cannon fodder, had managed to obtain the god weapon of hatred in the hands of the East God Lord, the God Slayer, and the promise of all the East God nations hovering motherships, including the Kuan Pung. Unless he was retarded, Black Day would not give him the god weapon Sword of Lihan. Taking over everything from Deicide was what Black Day needed. How could he give it to a cannon fodder like Sha Feng? In Black Day's eyes, Sha Feng was a dead man. There was no problem with a dead man promising anything. Anyway, a dead man would not ask for anything from a living man. Making a promise was just a matter of lip movement, and it was effortless. In order to make the Sha Feng that Yu Yang was impersonating work even harder, Black Day even promised to give Yu Yang the largest dragon hawk in the West God Nation. My brother, after this war, my heart will be at peace. In the future, I will focus on pursuing a higher realm. Haha, the war is over, why would I need the heaven-suspending mothership? I'll give it to you, the entire fleet, including the crew on the ship and the supplies stored in the various ports. Everything is yours. Black Day even solemnly introduced Yu Yang, the fake Sha Feng, to his experience in building and piloting the heaven-suspending mothership. He treated people with sincerity like a gentleman. Compared to him, the best actor was not even qualified to carry his shoes. It's really hard to build the heaven-suspending mothership. Besides, that guy will be gone for another 10 years. I still want a ready-made fleet. The Dragon Hawk and the Kuan Pung will be my mounts in the future, ha ha ha. With Sword of Lihan in hand and the Kuan Pung, I can also enjoy being the number one person in Deicide's outer mountains. Yu Yang played along. Good, brother Sha Feng is really heroic. Come, 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 let's drink to our heart's content. Black Day sneered in his heart. If you are the number one person in outer mountains, then who am I? On the surface, he was naturally happy to drink. Cheers to defeat Deicide. Yu Yang, who was pretending to be Sha Feng, also got into character at this time. Go on, go on. Your acting is good, and mine is not bad either. Anyway, everyone is just trying to make the ending exciting, so what's wrong with showing off a little? The North God Lord Zhao Shi smiled and did not say anything. He did not speak much for the past 3 days. Unless it was related to himself, he rarely interrupted and only drank. The Northwest God Lord Frost Cold did not find trouble with Sha Feng Yu Yang. First, he felt that the cannon fodder Yu Yang was going to die soon, so he was too lazy to fight for it. Second, there was information that the Northeast God Lord Qin Yun had already left Outer Mountains and went to the underground valley to avoid the God War. The East God Lord Deicide had even appeared to send him off. In this way, it was 100% proven that Sha Feng Yu Yang was not Qin Yun nor was he Deicide. Since he was not an enemy in disguise, he no longer cared about Sha Feng. Even if Yu Yang provoked him verbally, he would still arrogantly ignore it. This ice-cold Shuang Han, after spending a full 3 days, only then did Yu Yang realize that he was actually a stubborn and dictatorial fellow. It had nothing to do with evil, black-bellied, cheeky, or anything like that. It even had nothing to do with interest. He helped Black Day and besieged Akaji and Deicide just to decide to end the unstable factors in Outer Mountains as soon as possible. Frost Cold thought that neither Deicide nor Akaji was a good god lord. At the same time, he thought that the Northeast God Lord Qin Yun was too lazy and could not develop Outer Mountains or the Underground Valley at all. Being a god lord was a waste. Frost Cold foresaw that there would be a war in Outer Mountains sooner or later. If he supported deicide, both sides would be equal in strength. It would only bring about 1,000 years of war and waste time, and outer mountains and the underground valley would be destroyed because of the long-term god war. Therefore, he decided to support the West god Lord Blackday. In Frostcold's eyes, the West god Lord Blackday was undoubtedly the best commander. In addition to his powerful strength, deicide had little influence on management and the help he provided to the other 7 god lords to improve their strength. On the contrary, Blackday was completely different from deicide. In the past 10,000 years, he had provided a lot of help to the other 6 god lords, including Akagi, who had been besieged and killed on the spot. During the construction of the Suspending Sky mothership, he had also received guidance and help from Blackday. When Frostcold chose which camp to support, he did not hesitate to choose the West camp. He chose to support Blackday. The North god Lord Zhao Shi was in a neutral state and allowed him to pull him over. Of course, Frostcold was very in awe of deicide's strength. If it were not for Tencho, a hidden chess piece, and Ji Wuri, a surprise soldier, he would not have agreed to besiege deicide. In fact, he even made the final decision after successfully besieging and killing Akagi. After killing Akagi, deicide did not have his last ally. Only then did Frostcold have the confidence to besiege and kill deicide, ending the hidden danger of war in Outer Mountain. There was no such thing as justice and evil. Frostcold supported Blackday. He felt that Blackday was the most likely to win, and it was also the best result for the future of Outer Mountain and Earth Valley. Yu Yang did not have any psychological conflict with Frostcold's understanding and action, and did not think that it was necessarily wrong. Deicide was indeed not the best commander. If Blackday was the #1 person in Outer Mountain, he might really do better than deicide. The problem was that there was Ji Wuri and the central shrine in this war of gods. With their interference, Yu Yang could not sit back and do nothing. An enemy's ally was an enemy, and an enemy's enemy was an ally. Moreover, Yu Yang had also accepted Akagi's dragon swallowing and divine power, so he naturally had to stand on deicide's side. Moreover, standing on the weaker side, going against the heavens and turning the situation around, was it not better than going with the flow and giving him a greater sense of accomplishment? The most important point was, Yu Yang had helped god-slaying. Whether or not this fellow was a good god master or a good commander, he would not backstab Yu Yang in the back. If he helped Blackday and Ji Wuri, he would not be as scheming as a honeycomb. He was destined to die miserably. It would be strange if these 2 bastards did not kill him when he was no longer of use. Making friends, it was better to make friends who would not stab him in the back. Even if this friend was an idiot. Even if he was a useless ghost. He was still better than a smart person who was capable but scheming and would stab him in the back for his own benefit. No matter what, Sha Feng's ending was destined to be a cannon fodder. On the other hand, Yu Yang, who was pretending to be him, laughed very happily, ate and drank to his heart's content, and lived a carefree, befuddled life. The more he behaved like this, the more at ease Blackday felt. Deicide is back. The latest information came, attracting Blackday's attention. Where is he? Yu Yang, who pretended to be Sha Feng, expressed his excitement and concern. He almost rolled up his sleeves and started fighting. The so-called God's War was actually a battle between the soldiers of the eastern and western camp. No matter which camp won, the other side's soldiers would not win. They were not a force that could influence the outcome, they were just bait and stake. From the beginning, Blackday had locked his target on deicide. As long as deicide fell, everything else would be useless. Our hidden pawn caused a commotion at the back of the storm fort, using the forbidden power as a lure. He purposely killed almost 10,000 people, turning almost 1,000 soldiers into idiots. There were also more than 100 half-finished soldiers who went crazy and slaughtered their companions. They killed anyone they saw and were bloodthirsty. This matter had already alerted Deicide. According to the information, if Deicide's subordinates were unable to suppress them, he would personally take action and erase the valley. At that time, it would be a good opportunity for us to surround and kill him. Black Day and Ji Worry had long planned to lure the enemy. They had even deduced all kinds of changes that would happen afterward. They only started when they felt that there was no chance of failure. As long as Deicide fell for it, then this God's War would definitely break out. Once it broke out, there would be a clear winner. Deicide would follow Akaji and fall from the mountain outside the mountain. Ji Worry was in charge of luring the enemy and setting up all kinds of traps, waiting for Deicide to take the bait. Black Day would wait for an opportunity to strike. Are you sure about the information this time? When Shuang and Han mentioned the god-slaying art, their expressions became exceptionally serious. It wasn't just them. Yu Yang also discovered that even the northern god master, Zhao Shi, had a solemn expression on her face. The eastern god master had killed a god. Who exactly was he? How could he make Frost Cold and Zhao Shi pay so much attention to him? Now it was not 4 against 1, but 6 against 1. Tencho, the hidden chess piece, was extremely lethal, and Ji Worry, who was disguised as Akaji, could also be a vicious move if not seen through. Under such circumstances, Frost Cold and Zhao Shi were still carefully examining the plan, as if the slightest mistake would cause the entire plan to fail. Could it be that the East God Deicide was really that powerful? Fighting 1 against 6, could he still turn the tables? Was this guy still human? Yu Yang couldn't help but curse in his heart. Of course, he knew that Deicide, the number 1 person in the mountain outside the mountain, was not that simple. But now he was fighting 1 against 6, with strong enemies on the outside and a spy on the inside. Even so, he could still make the enemy fear him. He could only say one sentence: this guy was really strong. It was no wonder that Black Day would push his ally, Sha Feng, to be cannon fodder. Killing such an opponent without any losses was simply a joke. However, why must Sha Feng be sacrificed? It must be known that Sha Feng was the most loyal follower of Black Day. Wasn't he just a little weaker? Without saying a word, he was pushed out to be sacrificed. Was there still justice in this world? Although Yu Yang was a fake, he still felt sorry for Sha Feng. Sha Feng, you idiot, followed the wrong boss. In your next life, use your eyes to judge people. If there was a next life. Chapter 1181. To deal with Deicide, Yu Yang's impersonation of the southwest god, Sha Feng, had nothing to do with the initial traps and arrangements. Firstly, it was to keep it a secret. No matter how affectionately Black Day called him brother, Sha Feng was still an outsider. Speaking of absolute trust, he only trusted himself. Deep in his heart, Black Day might not even be able to fully trust Ji Worry. As for Zhao Shi and Frost Cold, it was even more impossible to fully trust each other. At present, it was necessary for them to work together to defeat the enemy. Allies were allies, but trust was trust. The person who truly believed in allies and brothers was Deicide, who was currently the number 1 person in Outer Mountain, and not him, the West God Black Day, who was about to replace him. In addition, Black Day felt that if he told Sha Feng all the plans and arrangements, it would be like playing the lute to a cow. If he needed to use his brain, it would be better to not let Sha Feng, the fool, know. Otherwise, it might mess things up. With this mentality, Black Day let Yu Yang stay at the rear, eat, drink and have fun. It was enough as long as he rushed up to be the cannon fodder. Southwest God, my master has sent back good news. Today is the moment to defeat the enemy. Rather than staying to accompany, it was better to say that the West God Nation's state preceptor, Master Buoshu, secretly monitored. On the 4th day after Yu Yang came to Jiao Lua Waterfall, he finally announced that the God's War had officially begun. He let Yu Yang, the cannon fodder, set off immediately. Good, after holding back for a few days, I can finally show my skills. Deicide, your time has come. Yu Yang put on an act of, I am a brainless cannon fodder, please send me to the battlefield to die. After a few days of immersion, Yu Yang's performance was remarkable. He couldn't get it from the side. He was definitely qualified to be the best minor character. He was absolutely calm while holding the lunchbox. Sometimes it was easy to find a best actor, but where else could you find someone like Yu Yang, who did his best to act as a supporting actor? Everyone wanted to be the main character these days. When Master Bushu saw this, he felt that if he did not send a person like Sha Feng to the battlefield as cannon fodder, he would be letting himself down. His intelligence was too gullible. At this moment, he admired his Lord Black Day even more. 10,000 years ago, his lord deliberately left the Southwest God Lord, Sha Feng, to be secretly cultivated. Before this, he had always been puzzled. It turned out that it was a brilliant move that only took place 10,000 years later. Brilliant, it was indeed brilliant. His lord's plan that exceeded the budget was simply unprecedented. It really made one prostrate themselves in admiration. Accompanied by Master Bushu, Yu Yang, Sha Feng made his move. He rushed to the battlefield where the ambush was set up. One glance. He saw Deicide. Before this, Yu Yang had imagined Deicide thousands of times, guessing whether this number one person in the outer mountains would be tall or short, fat or thin. What would he look like? Now that he looked, he found his target. Yu Yang's first impression was not that this person was similar to what he had imagined, but that he was unique. In this world, he was unique. No one could imitate or replace his uniqueness. This was Deicide, the number one person in the outer mountains, Eastern God Lord, Deicide. Unlike the rest of the people in the outer mountains, Deicide's attire was more like that of an ancient swordsman before he transmigrated. He wore a green robe that had been washed so many times that it had turned white, with only a piece of purple silk wrapped around his waist. His black hair was like a waterfall, curling into the sky, fluttering in the wind. His eyebrows were like swords, and his eyes were like lightning. He was arrogant and at ease. He was really handsome to the point of being a complete mess. Coupled with the unadorned but unadorned ancient god sword Hatred, which was definitely the number one divine weapon in the outer mountains, on his back, he and the sword became one. His divine power did not move, but he had already subdued all living beings in the world. This made Yu Yang, who had always been very confident, jealous and hateful. Fortunately, there was no girl beside him now. Otherwise, he might not even be able to fight against this old handsome guy. What kind of person was Deicide? There was a poem to prove it. The towering pine tree body, treading on the clouds to stand against the void. His long hair rose to the sky, his eyes burning with electricity. Ping Yang Quan surrounded him, his lips cold and silent. The ancient sword Deicide, who competes outside the mountains, is a divine weapon. Didn't you guys want to plot against that coffin-faced Deicide? Why aren't you guys making a move? Akaji, do you even know how to work? If you don't stab him now, what are you waiting for? Go, everyone go up together and beat this guy up. I have already endured him for more than 10,000 years, I don't want to wait another second. The fake Yu Yang excitedly took out his quasi-divine weapon, Spiral Tooth, shouting loudly as he rushed up to fight Deicide with his life. I have long disliked you. Of all the names you could have called yourself, why did you have to call yourself Deicide? Don't you know that calling yourself Deicide is making life difficult for everyone? Also, why are you so handsome? All the girls have been picked up by you, and you let me, a poor loser, live a lonely life. Do you know how big of a sin you have committed? As soon as Yu Yang said this, everyone present sweated profusely like a waterfall. Fortunately, they only called him when the battle started. Otherwise, they would have all been destroyed. Especially Black Day, he secretly patted his chest and thought that it was a close shave. If he hadn't been careful and left Sha Feng, this idiot, to wait at the back with his lousy intelligence, he would have definitely messed things up with his mouth. Any trap, plot, or plan would have been foiled. He had seen many idiots, but he had never seen this kind of idiot before. This was no longer an ordinary idiot, it was a kind of super invincible idiot that could drive people crazy, make them faint, make them die from anger, and make them come back to life. In the past, he really couldn't tell that Sha Feng would actually be this stupid at such a crucial moment. He couldn't help but admire him. How stupid must he be to shout at Ji Wuri, who was pretending to be Akaji, to stab him in front of Deicide. It was really, really, really unimaginable. Black Day really had to give it up. However, he didn't suspect that Sha Feng was taking the opportunity to inform Deicide. Firstly, an idiot like Sha Feng wouldn't do that. Secondly, if Sha Feng really did that, he wouldn't be so stupid. Thirdly, other than an idiot like Sha Feng, there wouldn't be anyone else in this world who would shout that they were spies in front of everyone. This wasn't revealing the secret, this was F*King lacking in intelligence. A person lacking in intelligence could say anything. They were just cannon fodder. How could their expectations be too high? If their intelligence was high, why would they be cannon fodder? Yu Yang's attack was deflected by Deicide's finger. He flew back 100 meters. He turned around and rushed in front of Ji Wuri, who was pretending to be Akaji. Under everyone's gaze, he angrily shouted at Ji Wuri, "Didn't I arrange for you to assassinate Deicide? Why did he use a finger to deflect me? Why haven't you made your move yet? Give me an explanation." "I've already succeeded. Deicide is already injured. His strength is at least 3/10 of his strength." Ji Wuri, who was pretending to be Akaji, didn't seem to be willing to talk to the idiot Sha Feng, who was being played by Yu Yang. It was as if idiocy was contagious. When he saw Yu Yang flying towards him, he immediately retreated. When Yu Yang approached him again, he had no choice but to shrug his shoulders and spread his hands. "Deicide can deflect you with a finger. I guess you're too weak. Do you think this explanation is reasonable?" "Reasonable your ass." When Sha Feng, who was played by Yu Yang, heard this, he immediately turned hostile and attacked. "I guess you've defected to the enemy. You didn't assassinate Deicide at all. Boring." Ji Wuri dodged and retreated 1,000 meters away. "Brother Sha Feng, the one we're going to fight now is Deicide." Black Day quickly went forward to dissuade him. He indicated that you can attack, but don't stray from the topic. Of course Deicide has to be killed. But this guy defected to the enemy and still wants to take the credit. I can't let him go. Yu Yang struggled with all his might. Black Day took a lot of effort to subdue him. Luckily Deicide looked at him coldly and didn't take the opportunity to attack. Otherwise, he really wouldn't know what to do. Don't tell me it's because you're not happy to see him transform into the appearance of the Red Dragon that you turned hostile and attacked him? Shuang and Han seemed to know Sha Feng's character and temper better, so they made a bold guess. How is that possible? Even if he was born with a mocking face, I've always prioritized the bigger picture. Akaji is already dead. I've already let go of my hatred. Haha, why would I hold a grudge against a dead person who's ranked 8th in terms of strength? Impossible, I'm not that kind of person. Yu Yang immediately denied, but the expression on his face was how did you guess it? Black Day, Frost Cold and Zhao Shi were speechless when they heard this. Sigh. Ji Wuri sighed and explained patiently. Of course I can change back to my original appearance. But right now this Akaji appearance is still useful. Useful? That's an excuse. I think you're addicted to changing into Akaji. Isn't it great to change into a handsome guy? If you want to change, why don't you change into my appearance? Other than giving me glory, you can also confuse the enemy. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But you insist on changing into Akaji's appearance. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You're just blatantly showing off. It's useless to explain. Now, I'll let you understand the consequences of angering me, Sha Feng. If I don't beat Akaji's face into a pig's head, I won't be able to dispel the hatred in my heart. Yu Yang angrily expressed the jealousy and hatred in his heart, as well as the prejudice he had against Akaji. He's not Akaji, he's just a transformation. Frost Cold couldn't help but ridicule. Can you even recognize your enemy? I don't care. Anyway, I can't change into Akaji's appearance. If I change into Akaji's appearance, I won't be happy. I want to chop him up. Yu Yang picked up his spiral tooth and was about to attack. Frost Cold was so angry that his eyes turned white. He really wanted to slap this idiot and send him flying. Idiot! Ji Worry snorted coldly. His figure was 1,000 times faster than lightning. An afterimage flashed. His real body had already disappeared without a trace. Originally, he wanted to watch the battle from the side, but this Southwest Divine Master was really annoying. He could only slip away in advance and proceed with the next step of his plan. Akaji ran away. Why didn't you guys stop him? Yu Yang shouted at Frost Cold and Zhao Shi. Cough, he's a fake. He's one of us. Zhao Shi couldn't help but cough. If he didn't explain, his throat would feel uncomfortable and itchy. I know he's a fake Akaji, but can't he change back into his real body before leaving? Isn't there a little bit of suspicion in this? I don't believe that guy. Maybe he's one of Deicide's men, and he's our spy. He said that he injured Deicide, but look at Deicide's body, where is there a single injury? His skin wasn't broken, and not a single drop of blood flowed out. This is too suspicious. Yu Yang acted the role of Sha Feng vividly. Deicide is indeed injured. It's a hidden injury. Black Day also felt that his throat was very uncomfortable. He couldn't help but explain. At the same time, he felt that it was very difficult to cooperate with a guy with low intelligence. Fortunately, this guy was going to die soon. Otherwise, it would be a great shame to have such a stupid friend. He's really injured? Okay, then I'll go. When the Sha Feng played by Yu Yang heard this, his eyes immediately lit up. He raised his teeth and danced wildly. The first credit belongs to me, Sha Feng. No one is allowed to snatch it from me. The hateful sword and the Kuan Pung suspending mothership are all mine. Ha ha. Deicide's head is mine. As long as I kill you, I'll be the #1 person in the mountains outside the mountains. Frost Cold and Zhao Shi covered their faces with tears. Even if you have such a thought in your heart, you can't say it in front of Black Day, can you? How could the Western God Master, who was going to take over the position of the #1 person in the mountains outside the mountains, endure this? Of course, they also understood that because of his lack of intelligence, and the huge pressure and excitement of fighting against Deicide, it was normal for Sha Feng to have words in his heart. Even they themselves, when facing Deicide, didn't lose a little bit of control. Black Day heard Yu Yang's loud words, but his face didn't show the slightest bit of annoyance. The corners of his lip, there was even a hint of a smile. In any case, he was just cannon fodder sent to die. Why did he need to be so smart? It was better if he had low intelligence. It wouldn't hurt if he died. Chapter 1182. Sha Feng's acting was really lively, and the effect was surprisingly good. But if he kept acting dumb and did not make a move, it would definitely make people suspicious. Yu Yang couldn't let people suspect him now. It was still too early for his future plans. Now he had to continue acting. As a cannon fodder, he had to play this minor role conscientiously. I'll kill you. Yu Yang condensed more than 10 tornadoes into one. Under the control of his divine power, the violent winds tore apart the endless void. Space fragment. Flying. The whole world seemed like it was going to cave in, and a strange black hole that sucked in everything faintly appeared from within. Frost Cold and Zhao Shi were shocked when they saw this. They couldn't imagine that the idiot Sha Feng could actually control such a huge power and such an exquisite ultimate move. It was really unexpected. Looks like after Sha Feng obtained the grimoire, he didn't waste his talent. Looks like he didn't abandon his training for 10,000 years. They had really underestimated him previously. They wouldn't be able to see it until the decisive battle. Sha Feng was actually this strong. Black Day also secretly applauded. The stronger the cannon fodder Sha Feng was, the smoother the plan to kill Deicide would be. However, when he saw this scene, he also felt a little surprised. Although Sha Feng's intelligence wasn't good, he seemed to be quite hard-working in training. He wasn't as weak as he looked. As a commander, he was still not qualified, but as a chess piece, a cannon fodder on the battlefield, Sha Feng was undoubtedly the best choice. Ji Wuri, who was far away, frowned slightly. He realized that this Sha Feng didn't have a summoning grimoire, yet he could use such an ultimate move. He was puzzled in his heart. Was this Sha Feng's talent really that good? He didn't seem to be the same as the rumors. Originally, Sha Feng was ranked last among the 8 divine masters in terms of strength and talent. Now, it seemed that he was at least not weaker than Akaji. He might even be better than the other Qin Yun. He was chasing after Frost Cold. Could it be that this idiot knew how to hide his strength? Was he really stupid, or was he faking it? But forget it. After this divine battle, no matter if he was really stupid or pretending to be crazy, there was only one ending for him. Not only him, but everyone else was the same. Anyone who tried to stop the final plan, anyone who tried to stop him, had to die. Ji Wuri felt that nothing could escape his plan, so he simply gave up on the battlefield and left in a flash. As the most talented genius in the central shrine and even in the entire heaven realm in the past 10,000 years, what he needed to do was not to plot against a god master or to keep an eye on an idiotic cannon fodder. What he needed to do was more important, and he needed to make a more thorough arrangement. Everyone was part of his plan. This mountain outside the mountain. There would never be a fish that escaped the net. In the net, even if there was a big fish that wanted to struggle, it would not be able to escape the evolution of the plan, because this was a perfect plan that he had made. Any life that was below his intelligence could not see through or break it. Break for me, you tortoise shell, it's too infuriating. Yu Yang condensed a storm black hole 3 times in a row and smashed it on Deicide's domain 3 times in a row. Unfortunately, the storm black hole that had the power to destroy heaven and earth could not break through Deicide's domain, which was defended by both his divine power and will. Even if it was on the verge of breaking, it still endured. Frost Cold and Zhao Shi, who were watching from outside the battlefield, were dumbfounded. As expected of the number 1 person in the mountain outside the mountain, Black Day still had the leisure to praise. Break. The Southwest God Master, Sha Feng, seemed to have gone crazy from fighting without holding back. He combined wind and fire, condensing a huge and high-speed rotating wheel with his divine power. He personally drove it towards the East God Master Deicide. The core of the wheel was the high-speed rotating quasi-divine weapon Spiral Tooth in his hand. This slash was a combination of wind and fire. It was driven by divine power, coupled with the sharp edge of the quasi-divine weapon. This time, the domain was split open like a red-hot steel blade cutting through a thin layer of ice. The God Slayer, that was adept at offense and not defense, was finally broken by the desperate sand gale. It was a domain that relied on its will to defend. Although Sha Feng had consumed more than half of his divine power, the last barrier had been removed. Now it was time for the real siege. Ice Frost was overjoyed. Zhao Shi was also overjoyed. Both of them condensed and increased their divine power, combining the grimoire and guardian beast in their hands. The Northwest God Master Frost Cold stood on the left with the quasi-divine weapon Soul Lock. The North God Lord Zhao Shi stood on the right with the divine mirror Jin Miao. In the middle was the West God Master Black Day, who had been waiting for a long time. They never expected Sha Feng to be able to kill or seriously injure Deicide. It was simply impossible. They only hoped that Sha Feng could consume as much of Deicide's divine power as possible, or at least break his protective domain and remove the last barrier. Everyone knew that Deicide had never been good at defense. If Ji Wuri had not disguised as Akaji and attacked Deicide's internal organs, Sha Feng would not have had the chance to attack. Even just now, the three of them were worried that Sha Feng would be killed by the angry Deicide in a second. With the Hatred Divine sword in hand, Deicide could definitely kill him in a second. The good thing was that he did not do so. Deicide chose to heal himself. He consumed his divine power to raise his domain to defend against the enemy. On the other hand, he was distracted and used his divine power to heal himself. Black Day, who set up the trap, certainly knew that the injury caused by Ji Wuri's attack could not be healed in a short period of time. The injury caused by Ji Wuri's attack with that treasure could not be healed unless it was the legendary Holy Lord. Deicide tried to multitask, consuming both his divine power to defend and his divine power to heal himself. He fell right into the trap. If this was not a trap, Black Day would have been the first to rush forward and attack. How could it be Sha Feng's turn to steal the limelight here? Humph! Deicide seemed to realize that he could not heal himself in a short period of time. He was extremely annoyed with Sha Feng, who attacked alone. The divine sword was still on his back. Deicide, who looked down on the entire outer mountains, did not even bother to use the Hatred Divine sword to attack a mere Southwest Divine Master, Sha Feng. Facing the flying Spiral Tooth and the madman Sha Feng, who was rushing over, Deicide bent the index finger of his left hand and flicked it lightly. The sword chi shot out. An indescribably sharp sword chi, formed by his divine power and will, was flicked out by Deicide and shot towards the madman Sha Feng. It easily pierced through and cut the unstoppable wind-fire wheels. Like lightning, it brushed past the high-speed Spiral Tooth and pierced towards the middle of Sha Feng's eyebrows. Deicide's sword was aimed at the vital point. The power of an instant kill was unparalleled in the world. "Watch out!" North God Lord Zhaoxi shouted, but it was too late. Humph! As the strongest, Black Day naturally had enough time to react. However, he was not willing to waste too much divine power on a cannon fodder like Sha Feng. Most importantly, he was not willing to let Deicide take advantage of this opening and attack relentlessly, turning the situation around. If he sacrificed Sha Feng, he would be able to gain the upper hand in the overall situation. Black Day did not care about it at all. Sha Feng was a cannon fodder that was destined to be sacrificed. There was no difference whether he died earlier or later. Like a net, the ice chains danced in the sky and instantly enveloped Sha Feng. It was as swift as capturing a wild beast. That net of ice chains had already dragged away Sha Feng, who was on the brink of death. Blood splashed into the sky. Although Deicide's sword did not kill Sha Feng instantly and was saved by frost cold at the last moment, that sword chi still left a deep wound on Sha Feng's shoulder and chest. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Blood gushed out like a fountain and dripped onto the ice chains that bound his body, turning into flowers of frost and blood. At this moment, Sha Feng was panting heavily. He was still in a state of shock. No one dared to believe it. In the end, the one who saved Sha Feng was actually frost cold. On the surface they were allies, but he had never been on good terms with Frost Cold. In fact, Frost Cold was his archenemy. "Bastard, I can deal with it. I don't need your fake kindness." The Sha Feng that Yu Yang played was definitely of a high standard. Even he himself did not know that he could act so well on the spot. "Don't misunderstand. I'm not saving you. I just want to watch you being tortured to death by Deicide slowly." Frost Cold raised his lips and mocked. "You, Deicide, the only one who can kill you is me, Sha Feng. Congratulations, you have successfully angered me. The eyes of the Sha Feng of Yu Yang were filled with anger. They turned as red as blood. His body was burning with flames. The storm of divine power that erupted from his body twisted the sky and the earth. Black Day secretly hated Frost Cold for being a busybody. Saving Sha Feng was not his plan. He originally wanted to let Sha Feng go crazy before he was heavily injured by the sword. He wanted to grab hold of Deicide and explode with his divine power to further exhaust Deicide. However, he did not expect that Frost Cold's intervention would ruin his plan. Fortunately, his wish was fulfilled. Sha Feng was injured. In addition to the pressure of death from Deicide and the stimulation from Frost Cold, he completely lost control of his emotions and went berserk. He reckoned that it would greatly exhaust Deicide's divine power. It might even exceed his expectations. Black Day and the rest did not look at the gradually berserk Sha Feng. They were all staring at Deicide. This Godslayer, he couldn't even relax for a second. He could lose at any time. Black Day seemed to see the center of Sha Feng's storm. There was a gold grimoire's light pillar rising. He could not see it clearly, but he could feel that it was the same as usual. He knew that Sha Feng was finally going to use his guardian beast. He was secretly happy. Sha Feng, this cannon fodder, was willing to risk his life. It seemed that he would definitely be able to kill Deicide today. He also looked at Zhao Shi and Frost Cold. These two allies did not have any abnormalities. It seemed that they were very smart and would not change their camp at the last minute. The eastern camp only had Deicide left. Other than the hidden chess pieces in the western camp, there were still many other arrangements. Zhao Shi and Frost Cold would definitely not joke around with their lives and future. Even that idiot Sha Feng knew how to suck up to someone powerful. Zhao Shi and Frost Cold's participation in the Gods' War would only be rewarded. There was no danger, why not? Black Day was very calm at this moment. His lips curled up into a smile. Sha Feng, who was behind him, roared like thunder. His voice was like a clap of thunder, shaking the heavens and the earth. This Southwest Divine Master seemed to have released all his divine power without holding back. Even Black Day was secretly amazed by the power of his charge. Although he was a little stupid, he was still a Divine Master after all. His battle power was actually not to be underestimated. The divine power of Sha Feng's charge had forcefully plowed a huge pit that was tens of meters deep and thousands of meters long. The rocks and sand inside were all turned into powder. The clouds in the sky had long been blown thousands of miles away. The storm blew up the mud and dust. Instead of covering the sky, it became a single line that could cover the sky. The sand gale charged like a raging bull, its final target being the Godslayer, who was still proudly standing with his head held high. Black Day did not know that Sha Feng had already turned into a fake Dragon Ball, and that his real body was Yu Yang. He saw that Yu Yang was fighting with all his might. He felt that it was a pity. Where else could he find such an obedient and useful little brother? He believed that there would not be such a cannon fodder that could be pushed out to die anytime and anywhere. It seemed that it was really a pity to watch him die like this. However, cannon fodder was cannon fodder. A chess piece was a chess piece. The role it played was to be sacrificed and used. Without value, there was no reason for the chess piece to exist. Black Day's heart hardened. How could a person who wanted to achieve great things be soft-hearted? Allies? They were born to be sold. Little brothers were born to be sent to die. As an ambitious person, he actually pitted the life of a chess piece in his hands. It was really too ridiculous. Black Day felt that the thought that flashed through his mind was laughable. At the same time, he snorted disdainfully. His heart became cold and as firm as iron. As long as he could kill Deicide, not to mention Sha Feng, even if he had to pay a huge price, he would not hesitate. Chapter 1183. Deicide snorted softly. He still did not take out the hatred sword on his back. He just stretched out his left hand and spread his 5 fingers. Each finger condensed a ray of sword chi. Each ray of sword chi was formed with divine power. The 5 swords were different, but the power of each sword could destroy the world. Facing the charging Sha Feng, although he did not force Deicide to use his full strength, he was no longer as disdainful as before. The 5 swords shot out. They pierced through Sha Feng's limbs and abdomen. Frost Cold and the others were shocked. Sha Feng's divine power storm was as fragile as a thin piece of paper under Deicide's 5 rays of sword chi. Sha Feng, who was still pierced by 5 swords, was a great cannon fodder played by a man from another world, a pitiful nobody who was betrayed by his boss, and was destined to meet a tragic end. At this moment, his universe exploded, and his body shone like a main character. He stole the show. He roared, and his voice was like thunder shaking the air. He should have been killed instantly by the Godslayer, but he stubbornly survived. He was even roaring at the ultimate opponent that he could never defeat, clamoring for a fight to the death, ignoring the 5 swords that pierced through his body as if they were nothing. Deicide, I'm not dead yet. If I'm not dead, I haven't lost yet. The undying cockroach, Sha Feng. He continued to charge. Like a raging bull, he moved forward. The 5 swords on his body swayed and blood spilled everywhere. When he finally reached Deicide, Sha Feng, who was covered in blood, raised his fist. He found that he did not have the strength to punch. Zhao Shi's face was full of shock, as if he was re-evaluating Sha Feng. Frost Cold's face was full of anger, and he clenched his fists tightly. There was an evil fire in his chest, but he did not express it. He knew that he was not angry at Sha Feng, who was stupid enough to rush to his death, but someone else. Someone who had the ability to stop but did not do it. You want others to work for you. Even if he had such a heart. At least, do something too. Watching from the sidelines and doing nothing, coldly and even cruelly watching others risk their lives for him, was he still human? Although this was the best choice from the perspective of interests, it was still too infuriating to actually do it. When Frost Cold thought of this, he suddenly shivered. His body, which had never felt cold before, felt ice-cold. A chill came from the depths of his heart, so cold that he couldn't calm down. You don't have to die in the first place. Why do you have to sacrifice your life for others? Deicide, the cool guy with a coffin-like face, was moved when he saw Sha Feng, who was covered in blood but still standing tall. He finally looked at Sha Feng. He's heartless, but I can't be heartless. Yu Yang, who was acting as Sha Feng, showed off his acting skills again. After listening to Shuang Han, his body trembled. Zhao Shi's eyes widened. Black Day, on the other hand, was furious. If you want to die, then die. Why are you still spouting nonsense? Spouting nonsense is a huge blow to our morale. Fortunately, this Sha Feng was about to die. Otherwise, Black Day wouldn't be able to control himself and beat this talkative fellow into minced meat. Black Day didn't have time to react. Sha Feng had already used the last of his strength and punched heavily on Deicide's chest. Deicide didn't defend himself. Sha Feng's punch caused blood to flow from the corner of his mouth. Seeing that you can still speak, I'll let you punch me once. Sha Feng roared, not only will I beat you, I will also kill you. Deicide smiled coldly. From his mouth, he ruthlessly spat out, you overestimate yourself. When Sha Feng punched for the second time, Deicide grabbed hold of Sha Feng with his left hand and threw him far away like a broken sack. Boom! He flew for an unknown number of kilometers, smashing through 2 small mountains and a huge rock. In the end, Sha Feng's entire body was smashed deep into the ground. The impact was like a meteorite breaking through the earth. As the heaven and earth shook, a huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Deicide's terrifying strength made Frost Cold's eyes twitch. With his left hand, he easily killed Sha Feng with a single move. With the hatred-parting sword on his back, he killed Sha Feng without even moving. This was the strength of deicide. This was the strength of the number one person in the outer mountains. Without an extremely perfect plan, it was really unrealistic to kill deicide with just the strength of a few people. Frost Cold and Zhao Shi looked at each other and saw a trace of horror in each other's eyes. Not to mention them, even the confident Black Day. He was also a little scared. Deicide was indeed too powerful. A muffled sound of thunder came from the distant horizon, as if a giant hand had broken a pillar that supported the sky, causing the sky to fall and the earth to crack. There was a strange blade light, as if it could cut through time and space, flashing and coming from afar. It unstoppably split the encirclement of Black Day, Frost Cold, and Zhao Shi. It broke in. The person was like a blade. The blade was like the person. If deicide was a heaven-splitting divine sword, then the person who came was an earth-splitting divine sword. A blade intense soared into the sky and divided into four parts, north, south, east, and west. Deicide and Black Day were placed in the east and west, while the person holding the blade, Zhao Shi and Frost Cold were placed in the north and south. Although he did not say anything, the person holding the blade in the south had the intention to fight the North God, Lord Zhao Shi, and the Northwest God, Frost Cold alone. He fought against two divine lords alone. This was not killing gods, but he was similarly brimming with confidence and arrogance. The person who came was the biggest supporter of the East Mountain Camp, the biggest spy of the West Mountain Camp, Deicide's most trusted brother and ally, and the most important pawn in Black Day's plan. South God Lord Tencho, the wielder of the divine artifact Snow Drinker. Deicide, leave Zhao Shi and Frost Cold to me. Tencho flicked Snow Drinker with his finger. The divine blade hummed like the roar of a magnificent army, and its killing intent soared to the sky. Are you injured? God Slayer keenly discovered that this brother of his actually had a faint internal injury, and his brows furrowed. It's just a small internal injury. I might not be able to touch Black Day, but I can still deal with Zhao Shi and Frost Cold. Tencho stood proudly with the blade in his hand. He exuded a heroic aura that seemed to be asking who was the real hero in the world. This undefeated and indomitable Southern God Master was not someone who could be knocked down by a little internal injury. No matter what, he was born to fight and died to fight. As long as he had a blade in his hand, there was no way he would yield or be discouraged. No matter what it was, nothing could break his straight back that was as straight as a blade. You're just showing off. Deicide coldly scolded. This East God Lord had never been a person who cared about others. Being able to do this was already his limit. Similarly, as the South God Lord, Tencho was also not a person who was good at communicating. He did not appreciate Deicide's rare concern. Don't worry, I will kill Zhao Shi and Frost Cold faster than you killed Black Day. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me, Tencho, for not remembering the past. Tencho's last two sentences were directed at Zhao Shi and Frost Cold. At this time, the light of a divine flame. It rapidly shot over. Ji Wuri, who was still in his Akaji form, laughed loudly. What a stubborn South God Lord Tencho. You're clearly on the verge of death, but you're still stubbornly holding on. Your mouth is full of arrogant words. Haha, could it be that the mountains outside the mountains are full of such boasting kings? As long as I stretch out my hand, your internal injuries will erupt and you will fall to the ground, unable to get up. You still dare to put on airs here, I really admire you. When Tencho saw Ji Wuri disguised as Akaji, his eyes immediately turned bloodshot and his anger soared to the sky. You disguised yourself as my brother and tried to assassinate me. Thief, you are so rampant and cunning. Today, I, Tencho, will slaughter a disaster like you. The blade light was like snow. With one slash, heaven and earth split. But when the blade was 1 foot in front of Ji-Wuri and about to cut Ji-Wuri in half, Ji-Wuri, who was still in Akagi form, lightly snapped his fingers. Although the snap was light, it was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue to Deicide and Tencho, who had been assassinated before. Even someone as strong as Deicide's body swayed. The blood that Sha Feng had made gushed out of his mouth and dripped down the corner of his lips, wetting his blue robe. Compared to Deicide, Tenchu's body was even more overwhelmed. His chest nearly exploded, blood spurted out of his mouth and nose, and the blade intent that could split heaven and earth shattered. The snow-guzzled divine saber couldn't even support its master's body. Tencho took a few more blows and tried to stabilize his knees, but his eyes rolled back. It was extremely difficult to focus and regain consciousness. Deicide rushed over. With one hand pressed on Tenchu's back, he concentrated his divine power and stabilized Tenchu's injuries. He helped him support his body steadily, not letting this man with the divine saber, who had never bent his knees or fallen on the battlefield, fall humiliatingly in front of the enemy who had ambushed and injured him. "You have me for everything." Deicide's other right hand gently wiped the blood stains at the corner of his mouth. His eyebrows were like swords, and his arrogance was soaring. "With just the 4 of them, don't even think about keeping me, Deicide. As long as I have a sword in my hand, there is no one who can stop me, Deicide, from killing, including you, Black Day." Deicide's last sentence was naturally said to Black Day. Now, Black Day's face was filled with pride. The plan was going smoothly. As long as there was no great ancient god descending and destroying the overall situation, then this war that had been planned since 10,000 years ago, he would definitely win. "Give me the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, Deicide, I just need to catch my breath." Tencho returned the divine saber to its sheath and frantically used his divine power to heal himself. "Go, kill Tencho, then besiege Deicide." Black Day roared. Frost cold and Zhao, she immediately set out. As if it was a palm that had been destined for thousands of years, it directly attacked Tenchu's back. As long as it was the North God Lord Zhaoxi's palm, it would never fail. No one could escape his attack under the guidance of his true wonder divine mirror and talent field. No one, not even the East God Lord Deicide, the #1 person in Outer Mountains, was an exception. The chains of ice were like hundreds of snow pythons that were startled out of their holes. They danced wildly and pierced through the void, interweaving into an impenetrable net that blocked the river. Deicide and Tencho were like fish. Both were in the net. The most frightening attack was not Ji-Wuri's finger flick, which caused Deicide and Tenchu's injuries to erupt, but Black Day. As expected of the #1 person in Outer Mountains, as soon as Black Day made his move, the world immediately darkened. It was so dark that one could not even see their fingers in front of them. Everything was swallowed by Black Day's divine power and will, and nothing could escape. In the darkness, a sword light shone. Like the light of dawn, no matter how dark the sky was, it could not erase the light that was comparable to the dawn. This was Deicide's sword. As the #1 expert of the Outer Mountains, the Eastern God Master, the God-slaying Master, finally drew his sword under the joint attack of 3 Divine Masters and a First Temple Master of the Central Divine Temple, whose level was lower than his, but whose strength was no less than a Divine Master's. Parting hatred in hand. Whenever this ancient god's sword was drawn, there would be a life that was about to disappear, and the world would be separated from it. "Break!" Deicide waved his sword, but before he could shout out, he suddenly saw a knife intent cut through the void, splitting the world and piercing his chest. Compared with the slash that had just killed Ji-Wuri, the power of this slash was thousands of times stronger. Deicide had never seen such a knife. Although he was familiar with Tencho for 10,000 years, he never knew that his brother could wield such a powerful knife. If this knife was not aimed at him, but at the enemy Black Day, then Deicide would be 100 times surprised, and sincerely feel gratified that his brother had broken through the original realm. But now, he was shocked. Except for astonishment, there was only astonishment, snow drinking the long river. At this time, Tencho did not show any signs of injury at all. On the contrary, he had just received at least 100 times the strength from Ji-Wuri's finger flick. The power of the sneak attack was so great that even he himself could not imagine it. The tip of the knife penetrated his clothes. Black Day's eyes, Zhao Shi's hand and Frost Cold's chain. At the same time, they faced Deicide. Under the sudden gaze of Black Day, Deicide froze. The parting hatred sword that he waved was entangled by Frost Cold's ice chain net. Although it cut countless ice chains, its speed was greatly reduced, and it became slower and slower. In the end, the sword's momentum was like a crawling snail. Although nothing could resist the ancient parting hatred sword, it was still possible for Frost Cold to temporarily slow it down with his divine power. Zhao Shi's palm was like light smoke, floated over, heavy as a mountain, and bombarded Deicide's back like a thunderbolt. There was no need for this palm. Tenchu's snow-drinking sword could also pass through Deicide. Before, the southeast god Master Akaji was also defeated by this move. However, at that time, Tencho did not use his full strength, nor did he receive the special blessing from Ji-Wuri, so the power was far inferior. It did not even have 1/10 of the power of today's attack on Deicide. Behind Deicide, a sharp blade intent Gang Chi cut through the sky, and cut the earth 10,000 meters long. Just the residual force of the attack cracked the earth, and a huge pit that even a mammoth could not jump over. It was 50 meters wide, 100 meters deep, and 10,000 meters long. How would Deicide, who had suffered the full attack of the snow-drinking sword, do? After Black Day and Deicide looked at each other, his eyes hurt slightly. He closed his eyes, and endured the pain after the collision of divine power. He closed his eyes again. The originally pitch-black world was restored to light. Zhao Shi was blown away by Deicide's protective divine power, and all the ice python chains were also cut by the parting hatred sword. At the same time, it also cut a deep wound on Frost Cold's arm. Ji-Wuri threw a strange ball-shaped beast, and let the parting hatred sword kill it. He escaped safely in an instant, and escaped 30,000 meters away from the sword intent of the parting hatred sword. Frost Cold, who thought that the same sword could hurt his body, was also shocked and puzzled. Only Tencho was still in the same place. He held the sword with both hands. It was not that he did not want to move, but the tip of the snow-drinking sword was clamped by the index and middle fingers of Deicide's left hand. He could not pull the sword out and was forced to stay motionless. There was no expression on God Killer's face at all. It was as if Tian Chao's attack was a matter of course, and it was as if it was natural for him to catch Tian Chao's divine blade with his fingers. There was no special reaction at all. Just like that, he looked at Tian Chao in front of him quietly. At the corner of his lips, the blood that was injured by Zhao Shi's heavy palm came out for the third time. Drop by drop, it dripped onto his green robe. When Black Day and the others saw this scene, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Deicide, this guy, the #1 person in the outer mountains, was actually this strong? With just 2 fingers, he could clamp Tenchu's full power attack with the snow-drinking sword? Moreover, this was a sneak attack that was strengthened by 100 times by Ji-Wuri. Impossible. This was simply impossible. Do you think that I, Deicide, would be so stupid as to let someone successfully sneak attack me twice? Deicide calmly released his fingers, ignoring the shocked Tencho in front of him. He held his sword horizontally across his chest, and with a long whistle, his green robe stained with blood, he stood proudly. At this moment, he gave people the feeling that he looked down on all living beings in the world. Chapter 1184. There was a mole. If there wasn't a mole, How could Deicide have known that Tencho would launch a sneak attack in advance? Black Day immediately looked angrily at Frost Cold and Zhao Shi. He felt that the mole was one of them. As for the Sha Feng, who was used as cannon fodder by Deicide, Black Day didn't doubt it at all. An idiot like Sha Feng, even if he was stupid enough to tell the truth to Deicide, Deicide would never believe it. Between Frost Cold and Zhao Shi, who was the mole? Was it the northern god Lord Zhao Shi who had the mirror of truth? Or was it the Frost Cold who had the soul-binding ice chain? Zhao Shi's condition was to take over the entire mountain beyond and valley. Although he didn't gain the title of the number one person in the mountain beyond, he gained the reality of being the number one person in the mountain beyond. According to such generous conditions, coupled with the fact that he already had the true wonder divine mirror that knew the truth, he should know that he was not lying and would definitely fulfill his promise. Then, his participation in the siege of the God Slayer seemed more credible. On the contrary, the condition that Shuang and Han obtained in this battle was the God Slayer secret realm. Moreover, it was the God Slayer's secret realm that had been searched for 10 years by Tianqiu. Killing the God Slayer would not bring any direct benefits to the Northwest God Lord, Shuang and Han. What was most suspicious was that Frost Cold was too enthusiastic and proactive. Not only did he use ending the war in the mountain beyond to join the western camp, he even took the initiative to persuade the northern god Lord Zhao Shi to pull Zhao Shi into the western camp. In the past, when Frost Cold tried his best to pull Zhao Shi into the western camp, Black Day couldn't say anything. Although he had some doubts in his heart, he believed it for the time being. This Frost Cold, who had always been thinking of ways to turn him into cannon fodder and sacrifice himself in the divine war, actually didn't have any feelings of sympathy when he saw Sha Feng being killed. At that time, he felt that something was wrong. This was too suspicious. Unless he was a spy, one who had long since formed an alliance with Deicide and secretly infiltrated the western camp to gather information. Otherwise, when Sha Feng was killed, he would definitely feel uncomfortable. At the same time, he would be afraid that he would follow in Sha Feng's footsteps. Frost Cold didn't seem to worry about this at all. Did he really trust him that much? Moreover, Deicide must have already promised him the best conditions and promised what would happen after the deed was done. Otherwise, why would he appear to have no desires when he joined the western camp? Black Day observed carefully. Shuang stared at the Godslayer and seemed to be shocked. But Black Day could see that Frost Cold was confident in this outcome. Before this, Frost Cold was also very respectful to Deicide. Even when Sha Feng called him disdainfully, he strictly corrected him. If he was not Deicide's chess piece, why would he behave so fiercely? There was a sword wound on Frost Cold's arm, but it wasn't very serious. He who was the weakest suffered the least injuries. What was the reason for this? On the other hand, the northern god, Lord Zhao Shi, who was much more powerful, had a relaxed smile on his face. However, the corner of his mouth was bleeding profusely. He struck Deicide's back with a heavy palm strike and obtained the greatest result of this attack. However, it also caused Deicide's divine power to rebound, and he suffered serious injuries. Zhao Shi was the main attacker, but he was still heavily injured, let alone Frost Cold, who was responsible for restraining him. This was extremely suspicious. According to the analysis of the situation at that time, if Zhao Shi was the mole, he could have struck Tenchu's back instead of hitting Deicide's body, causing Deicide to vomit blood. Zhao Shi had the best opportunity to not strike back at Tenchu. He couldn't be the mole. So, the mole wasn't him, but someone else. Tenchu was one of them. Sha Feng, this idiot, couldn't be the mole either. As for Ji Wuri, no one could be a mole, but he couldn't be one. Therefore, the only suspicious person was him. It was him. The Northwest god, Frost Cold. You suspect me? Frost Cold was stunned at first. After seeing Black Day's gloomy expression of, "I found you," He suddenly became furious and flew into a rage. "You can suspect anyone, but not me. I asked for the least, had almost no desires, and had no conditions to help you. Why did I do it? Not only did I come here myself, I also pulled Zhao Shi along. He originally wanted to stay neutral, but I wanted to end the gods' war as soon as possible and persuade him to join the Western camp. You were not moved by my persuasion and even suspected me. Your reaction is simply despicable. If you don't open your mouth to defend yourself, then I will believe you for one more second." Black Day's eyes stared at Frost like a poisonous snake. "Listen to yourself, what are you saying? No desires, are you, Frost Cold, really that great? Will you die for me without any conditions? Actually, I have suspected you for a long time, but I didn't expose your tricks at that time. I didn't expect you to reveal yourself at the start of the Gods' War. Really, I must have been blind to think that you were the final winner of the Gods' War." Frost Cold couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. "Just now, I saw that you watched as Sha Feng died heartlessly. You should have withdrawn and prevented the tragedy from happening. Black Day, you disappoint me. You disappoint me even more." Black Day's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Clap, clap, clap. Ji Wuri, who had retreated 10,000 meters away, clapped his hands and laughed. "Actually, Lord Frost Cold is not a simple person. To be able to endure the humiliation and enter the Western camp, and to gain his trust, to bring Lord Zhao Shi, who was considering whether to join the Western camp at that time. With such scheming and strategy, you are only ranked 5th in the Outer Mountains. That is a bit of an underestimate. In my opinion, Lord Frost Cold can at least be ranked in the top 3, just below Deicide and Black Day." He was trying to sow discord. Not to mention the southern god Lord Tencho, who hated Frost Cold. Even the northern god Lord Zhao Shi, who was his best friend, had a slight change in expression. No matter how good a friend was, they couldn't be ranked in front of him. This was the most basic principle of any martial artist. It was also the bottom line. The bottom line that couldn't be crossed. "Shuang and Han, I have always treated you as my brother. Today's matter was a bit of a misunderstanding, so you should leave first. Once the Battle of Gods is over, we can meet again to drink and have fun." The northern god Master Zhao Shi took a deep breath, as she could not bear to persuade Shuang and Han to leave. "You suspect me too?" Frost Cold roared like a wounded beast. "You are the Zhao Shi who possesses the true wonder divine mirror. Even you can't see the truth? The truth of the Gods' War is complicated and confusing. It's not something I can pry into." Zhao Shi sighed and waved his hand. "I believe you, but it's not enough for me to believe you alone. Frost Cold, if you leave now, we will still be friends and nothing will change. If you insist on staying, then even if you're not a spy, everyone will still be restrained because of their old fears. If I leave now, I will never be able to wash away my injustice." Frost Cold's eyes were bloodshot. "There's no need to leave." Southern god Lord Tencho slowly pulled out the snow-guzzle divine saber. Looking at Shuang Han, he coldly spat out a sentence. "Whether you are really a spy or an ally, I have to keep you. Shuang Han, I can clearly tell you a truth. My motto is that I would rather kill 3,000 by mistake than let one go. You do not need to feel anger or sorrow. As a weakling, this is your destiny. Ever since you joined our Western camp, I have never thought of giving you the god-vanquishing secret realm. The truth is a bit cruel, but Frost Cold, you are not worthy of it." Frost Cold trembled with anger. He did not say another word. He only used all his strength to increase his divine power and fought to the death. When the northern god Master Zhao Shi heard this, her expression turned slightly gloomy. However, she pretended not to hear anything as she silently retreated 10,000 meters away, putting herself out of the way. "Pitiful worm, you are the same as Sha Feng. Both are pitiful worms." Southern god Lord Tencho flicked the saber with his finger and shouted boldly, As long as you can take 3 slashes from me, I can spare your life. Of course you can despair now, because you can't even take 1 slash." Shuang Han was silent. He took out the quasi-artifact soul-locking ice chain for the first time. The crystal-clear ice chain soul-locking ice chain was 100 meters long. It was full of spirituality around Shuang Han, guarding his master. However, compared to the divine weapon, Blade Snowdrinker, it was only a quasi-divine weapon, so there was a huge gap between it and the divine weapon in terms of power. This gap, in the hands of these two masters, whose strength was also very different from each other, was magnified several times. Just as Tenchu's divine power and will enveloped Frost Cold and the Snow Drinker divine blade was about to cut off Frost Cold's head, Eastern God Lord Deicide, who had been watching coldly from the side, suddenly revealed a mocking smile. "Southern God Lord, how impressive! Tencho, I wonder if I, Deicide, can take 3 slashes from you?" As expected, Frost Cold is one of your men. Black Day felt that he had finally found evidence. Sigh. Frost Cold, who no longer wanted to defend himself, shook his head and sighed. He had never imagined he would end up like this. Such an ending was not even comparable to that of Sha Feng, who had foolishly charged like cannon fodder. At least Sha Feng had died a glorious and heroic death, but he had humiliated himself from a loyal ally to an undercover traitor. He was really speechless. If he had known this earlier, he would have charged at Deicide like a fool with Sha Feng. At the very least, he would have died at the hands of Deicide. He still had some value. Frost Cold, he was never one of my men. I say this because I don't want to mistreat my brother. The true brother of Deicide is Akagi, who will never betray me and can entrust his life to me. I'm not pretending to be kind and righteous, Southern God Lord Tencho. In fact, I already knew you were one of Black Day's men without anyone telling me. Do you think you can hide it from my eyes? For 10,000 years, I kept you by my side to give Black Day a signal of stability that he thought he had succeeded. Frost Cold, although I admire you, you are not one of my men. There is no need for me to stand up for you. Go, I will let you off this time, seeing that you are not a bad person. Don't let me see you again. Finally, what I want to say is that as a brother of Deicide, I will absolutely not allow any trifling insult in the world. Whoever dares to insult my brother, the Lihin sword in my hand will not spare them. Black Day, Tencho, you dare to kill Akagi, Deicide will definitely kill you. Even if you are from the central shrine, you will definitely die. When Deicide said the last sentence, his anger and sword intent soared into the sky. It was as violent as thunder. It exploded until the sky and the earth changed color. In an instant, Deicide seemed to become infinitely tall and huge. He felt like a giant who could casually stretch out a finger and crush the ant-like Black Day and Tianan. When Deicide held the Lihin sword towards the sky, Black Day and Tencho were both horrified, deeply afraid that they would be instantly killed by the sword. Yu Yang, who was hiding in the rock and pretending to be dead, calmly lay there, concentrating on playing the role of a minor character. He was not like Stephen Chow, who asked the director if he wanted to die a little more mischievously, or to die a little longer. In this day and age, it was not easy to play the role of a corpse, let alone a minor character who only had lunch to eat. Yu Yang was even thinking whether he should give himself an award for the best minor character in the future. He knew that Deicide would explode. But he also had a premonition that things would not be so simple. If it was just these 3 tricks, Black Day, Tencho and Jiwuri would not be able to scheme against Deicide. There must be a more detailed and perfect plan behind. In other words, this was the beginning of Deicide falling into the trap. Killing Akagi previously was not to weaken Deicide's strength, but to anger Deicide. As for the sneak attack, it was not important whether it was successful or not. The Godslayer was definitely not a man who would fall to the ground after being ambushed. He was a swordsman who could not be bent, twisted, or pried away. If one wanted to kill the Godslayer, there was only one way, and that was to provoke him. Then, in a battle to the death, he would be completely eradicated. If Deicide wanted to leave, no one in outside mountain could stop him. Jiwuri had calculated that if he killed Akagi, Deicide would definitely not hesitate to avenge Akagi at all costs. Next, it was time for Jiwuri, the best actor, to perform. Compared to him, Black Day was at most a supporting role. He was not the main character at all. Chapter 1185. Don't think that you are the only one with a divine weapon. Do you think my Candle Knight is inferior to your separation hatred? Black Day was still arrogant in front of the unstoppable Deicide. He calmly analyzed Zhao Shi's Zhen Miao Mirror, Tenchu's Snow Guzzle Divine Blade, and my Candle Knight Divine Jewel. Today, even if Deicide has the ability to go against the heavens, he will definitely lose. Following his words, the southern god Lord Tencho summoned a gold grimoire. He activated his inherent skill. He quickly raised his domain of saber chi. Amidst the crazy explosion and support, the snow guzzle in Tenchu's hand instantly fused with a strange-looking guardian beast, emitting thousands of rays of divine weapon brilliance. After the divine power desperately increased, Tenchu's whole body seemed to become infinitely huge, like a mountain. He grew until he was close to Deicide before he slowly stopped. Although he was not as tall as Deicide, he was quite close. It felt like Tencho was like a 7 feet tall man facing another 9 feet tall Deicide. Although there was a big gap, it was not as exaggerated as a dwarf and a giant. Their strength was still on the same level. On the other side, the northern god Lord Zhao Shi's strength was almost the same as Tenchu's. He was even more mysterious. Even after summoning his gold grimoire and activating his domain of power, Yu Yang, who was hiding far away and pretending to be dead, still couldn't see the form of his guardian beast clearly. He only felt that it was like a fog, misty and indistinct. If Tencho was a prickling awl, then Zhao Shi was a hidden needle. No one knew when he would show his sharpness, but Yu Yang was sure that once this northern god Lord Zhao Shi showed his true colors, he would definitely cause great damage. If it was just Tianqiu and Zhao Shi, it would be impossible for them to suppress Godslayer. But add the darkness of the day. The balance would inevitably shift towards the western camp. The moment Black Day summoned his grimoire, the sky darkened. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. Following that, a ray of purplish gold that was deep and pitch-black shot out of a black hole, emitting a blinding radiance. Yu Yang swallowed his saliva. That was a divine-level pearl. Because he was pretending to be dead, Yu Yang didn't dare to use his Heaven Eyes divine vision to scan it. He couldn't judge its true quality for the time being. But even so, it could be concluded that this was probably the god pearl of Zhuyi. It was a level higher than the true wonder divine mirror and the snow-guzzling divine saber. It was close to the ancient divine sword Li Hen in the hands of the god Slayer. If Yu Yang looked down from the highest point in the sky, he would discover that the sky and the earth were divided into two halves. Half of it was a day with a brilliant sword chi. The other half was a night that was as dark as ink. It was faintly discernible, and sometimes there were god pearls, divine blades, and divine mirrors. With Black Day taking the initiative and Tencho and Zhao Shi assisting, the night gradually suppressed the day supported by Deicide alone. Although Black Day and Deicide couldn't be equated, the difference in strength was not big. If Deicide was 9 feet tall, then Black Day was more than 8 feet tall. With the assistance of the two 7 feet tall Tencho and Zhao Shi, Black Day gradually gained the upper hand. Humph! If the Northwest Divine Lord Frost Cold, who was watching from the side, rushed up to help at this time, it would definitely speed up Deicide's defeat. But he didn't do so. Previously, Black Day's attitude towards Sha Feng and him had greatly hurt Frost Cold's heart. He had always thought that he took the initiative to help without asking for anything in return, and only wanted to end the war of gods as soon as possible, but now his heart was broken. Not to mention that Black Day still had the upper hand, even if he was completely at a disadvantage. He would not reach out to help Black Day. After the previous ruthless abandonment of Sha Feng and the vicious suspicion of himself, Frost did not hit him when he was down and instead helped him kill God. It was already good enough for him to turn the spearhead and attack Black Day. It was impossible for him to help, and it was also impossible for him to do so. Frost Cold decided to leave here. What war of gods? Forget it. It was better to be like Qing Yun and live his own life freely. Unfortunately, Zhao Shi was still unmoved by the situation. Otherwise, Frost Cold would leave more comfortably. Please wait a moment. Ji Wu Ri suddenly appeared in front of Yu Shuang and Yu Han with a smile on his face. It was a sincere smile, exuding the charm of a superior. Anyone who saw him would feel that he was trustworthy. Those who were of lower status would even feel ashamed of themselves, not daring to raise their heads to look at the First Lord of the Temple. If you want to persuade me to change my mind, then there's no need. Frost Cold rejected the possibility of reconciliation. Black Day was not the best leader, and now he had completely given up. No, I have no intention of persuading you. I have no interest in the grievances and misunderstandings between you and Black Day, and I am not willing to be a peacemaker. Ji Wuri shook his head and waved his hand, indicating for Frost Cold not to misunderstand. He smiled especially sincerely, especially amiably, and especially warmly looked at the Northwest Lord Frost Cold, until Frost Cold was a little confused, and finally asked word by word. Northwest Lord Frost Cold, do you think that I am just a quasi-god and you don't need my permission to leave? Hey! Shuang Han's heart was extremely angry, but his face was smiling instead. So if I want to leave, I have to get your permission to leave? Then will you agree? I don't agree. Ji Wuri shook his head gently and shrugged his shoulders. If you kneel down, hug my legs, and swear to be my slave, I may consider whether to spare your life. Frost Cold's face instantly froze. He was extremely angry, but he did not immediately explode. As a god-level expert who had cultivated for 10,000 years, he was unexpectedly intercepted by a quasi-god-level junior. He had never seen such an arrogant look in his life. He even wanted him to kneel down and kowtow, and swear to be a slave before he would consider whether to let him leave. Wasn't this too much of a bully? Even if a tiger fell to the plains and was bullied by a dog, it should not be like this, right? Even if it was Tencho, or even Black Day, who dared to challenge deicide, would not dare to be so arrogant against him. You, on what basis? Frost Cold could not help but snort. On the basis that my name is Ji Wuri, a grimoire holder who is destined to devour your entire outer mountain, and even the entire trial ground. No, I will be a grimoire holder in the future, the last grimoire of the trial ground. It is destined to belong to me only. Ji Wuri seemed to be describing a trivial matter. He was not the slightest bit excited, nor did he show any arrogance or fear. His expression was as calm as water, as if it was a matter of course. Yu Yang was not lightly shocked by Ji Wuri's words. Big brother, can you watch your words? You haven't obtained the grimoire yet, can you be more low-key? Don't you know how to write modesty? If you don't, I can teach you. Don't be so arrogant. Yu Yang, who had pretended to be dead for a long time, almost could not help but jump up to refute. Fortunately, he had good control. He forcefully held it in. Even if his body was already charred on the outside and tender on the inside, he still clenched his teeth and did not make a sound. Frost Cold was also stunned for a long time. He really did not expect that Ji Wuri would actually answer like this. He was speechless. However, in the next second, the sky full of ice chains, like a net blocking the river, enveloped Ji Wuri. The cold air that was close to absolute zero turned water into ice, instantly freezing Ji Wuri into an ice sculpture. Too weak. Ji Wuri, who was in the state of an ice sculpture, shattered with a paw and returned to normal. His body was completely unharmed, completely ignoring the bone-piercing cold air and the ice chains flying around his body. He calmly reached out his right hand, as if caressing a lover's skin, and summoned a magnificent and brilliant holy grimoire. Once the holy grimoire was out, a protective shield and a domain rose at the same time. It was unknown what kind of inherent skill Ji Wuri had, but he, who also had the sovereign's will, only needed a flick of his left hand to turn all of Frost Cold's attacks, including the ice chains condensed from divine power, into thousands of harmless gentle snowflakes that slowly floated down. Sovereign's will. Frost Cold's expression changed drastically. This kind of high-level stuff, you country bumpkins who rely on others to obtain your summoning grimoire will never understand. Even if you have a summoning grimoire, you will never be able to become a true god, let alone become a sovereign. In short, you are all trash. If it wasn't for Taiyin and Bingley meddling in other people's business, you would never be able to obtain a summoning grimoire in your lifetime. Ji Wuri casually flipped through the pages of his holy grimoire, as if he couldn't think of which beast he could summon, or any beast he could summon that could easily defeat Frost Cold, who was a divine master. He couldn't make a decision at that moment. Frost Cold was so angry that his whole body was trembling. But he also knew how terrifying an enemy who had the sovereign's will and the holy grimoire was. Deicide didn't have a holy grimoire at all. He was stronger and higher than Black Day in terms of will, but he was already firmly in the position of the strongest person in the Outer Mountains, unshakable. Now, this Ji Wuri not only had the sovereign's will, which was higher than Deicide's, but he also had the holy grimoire that everyone dreamed of. How should this battle be fought? Frost Cold didn't have an answer. He had never met an enemy who had a holy grimoire. Even Taiyin and Bingley, who were close to invincible in the past, didn't have a holy grimoire. Master, let me, Resentment G, deal with this little worm. 10,000 years ago, when this little worm was still crying, I had already taught him a lesson. At that time, he was so scared that he peed his pants. If it wasn't for Taiyin and Bingley who meddled in other people's business, the Outer Mountains would have been razed to the ground by me. Now I, Resentment G, have returned here again. Taiyin and Bingley are no longer here. Things remain the same, but people have changed. I can't take my revenge, so it's good for me to vent my anger on these little worms. Otherwise, I won't be able to relieve my depression. A golden shadow rose from the holy grimoire like smoke. While what? Resentment G? Weren't you sealed by Taiyin and Bingley? When Frost Cold saw this golden shadow, he was so scared that his whole body shivered. Yes, I was sealed. However, Master had already released me thousands of years ago. When I first escaped the seal, it was really miserable. I was almost discovered by you guys. In order to save my life, I had no choice but to fuse with Master's guardian beast. However, this also created a perfect life for me. I have a perfect body that will never die. In addition to Master's talent, the day when I, Resentment G, will unify the Outer Mountains is not far away. No, not only will I unify the Outer Mountains, the Human Valley, the Earth Valley, and the Heaven Valley that originally belonged to me, even the entire trial ground, will be in my pocket. You fools, you don't even have the qualifications to be my slaves. Ha. The golden shadow was extremely arrogant and laughed loudly as if there was no one else around. Frost Cold's expression changed. He used the ice chains to form a wall of ice chains to protect his body. Then, he tore open the space and prepared to teleport away from this place. The golden shadow didn't even look at him. He casually stretched out his finger and pointed it lightly. A ray of divine light broke through the air and easily penetrated the 10,000-year-old ice wall. Then, it ignored Frost Cold's protective divine power and pierced through the Northwest Divine Lord, Frost Cold. From his chest to his back there was a hole the size of a bowl. Through. Do you think I'm still the pitiful person who had just escaped the seal and was scared to death by the slightest movement? Frost Cold, Frost Cold. Back then, you and Zhao Shi had the best opportunity, but you didn't investigate carefully. In the end, I successfully escaped with the help of my master. After thousands of years of recovery, not only have I recovered my full strength, I'm even stronger than when I fought against Taiyan and Bingli. Without Taiyan and Bingli, do you think you little bugs can compete with the first heavenly king of the realm beyond heaven? The golden shadow waved his hand and threw out a bloody man. Frost Cold fixed his eyes on it and stared at it. Qing Yun. The bloody man whose divine power had been sucked dry and was on the verge of death was the Northeast Divine Lord, Qing Yun, who disliked fighting and war the most in the outer mountains. A Qing Yun who cherished flowers and trees and treated all life equally. Among all the divine lords, the first one to be recognized by the grimoire was this Northeast Divine Lord, Qing Yun, even a few seconds earlier than the East Divine Lord, Deicide. Even Black Day admitted that the Northeast Divine Lord, Qing Yun, was a gentleman. When Qing Yun refused to participate in the war, Black Day did not force him. Deicide even personally sent him away. Unexpectedly. Such a divine lord who loved life and peace was sucked dry of his divine power by worry and resentment, and was tormented to the point that he didn't even look human. Frost Cold felt that his eyes were about to pop out of his eye sockets, and a burst of anger erupted from his chest. Ignoring his own serious injuries, he rushed over and hugged the dying Northeast Divine Lord, Qing Yun. His throat was stiff, and he wanted to shout, but he couldn't. His vision had already become blurred. Even Deicide and Zhao Shi, who were fighting over there, were stunned and stopped. They looked over in disbelief. The golden shadow lifted the heavily injured Frost Cold with one hand and laughed wildly. With Master's devour inherent skill, you little bugs are all nutrients for me to return to the peak and surpass myself. Do you know why Master started this war? He wanted to catch you idiots in one fell swoop. Do you think that Master is still a quasi-god after thousands of years, just because he is not talented enough? What a bunch of stupid bugs. If it wasn't for Master's devour inherent skill, which needs to absorb energy higher than the strength of the body, do you think you can look up to Master's level? Do you think you can still live until now? As early as thousands of years ago, Master could already reach the god level. Compared to him, you are not even a little bug, and you think you are very great. You are really a bunch of poor frogs at the bottom of a well. Wuxia, why did you hide it from me? Black Day's face became very ugly. Because you are also one of the nutrient. Tencho, who was standing beside Black Day, stabbed the snow-guzzle divine saber into Black Day's heart at lightning speed. In less than 1,000th of a second, Black Day had already reacted. He was ready to fight back. But the golden shadow had already flashed behind Black Day, grabbed Black Day's head with his big hand, and slammed this ambitious and ruthless person to the ground. In the next second, Black Day heard Ji Worry's voice, which was as calm as water, ringing in his ear. Wuxia will kindly accept Uncle's power. Your last wish, Wuxia will also strive to fulfill it for you. Chapter 1186. Black Day felt Ji Worry's hand pressing on his back. In just 1 second, 10% of the divine power in his body was drawn away. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. Using all his strength, he turned into a ball of black light and forcibly broke free from the golden shadow's hand. In the air, he dodged Tenchu's snow-drinking divine blade that could tear the heaven and earth apart, and narrowly avoided the golden shadow's god taboo finger. In a panic, Black Day had nowhere to run and was forced to flee to the side of Deicide, who was just an old enemy. He knew that at times, staying by the side of an old enemy was safer than standing by one's side, such as now. Deicide, I don't want to fight for the position of number 1 in the Outer Mountains anymore. Now that hatred has been reborn, we must join forces to defeat the enemy. Black Day changed his position at the first moment, abandoning all his previous desires and goals. He put defeating the enemy and saving his life first. I don't need to join forces with you, Deicide snorted. He believed everyone but Black Day. Who knew if this was a scheme of the Western camp? Even if it wasn't, wouldn't he be happy to see dogs biting each other? Of course, hatred, the strongest enemy in the past, had returned to the Outer Mountains. It was indeed a dangerous situation that he couldn't be careless about. Deicide took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the hatred-parting divine sword. A strong enemy had reappeared. This battle, he had to go all out. But he definitely wouldn't join forces with Black Day. Joining forces with this kind of ruthless person who would betray his allies at any time was like asking a tiger for its skin. You are really muddle-headed. A burst of hatred emerged in Black Day's heart. He was angry at Deicide's refusal, but also felt humiliated at being betrayed by his nephew. Ha ha ha, my dear uncle, you can't blame the Eastern God Lord for refusing to cooperate with Deicide. You should look for the reason yourself. If it weren't for your notorious reputation of ruthlessness and betrayal of your allies, how could you be so wicked and despised by the world? Not to mention outsiders, even I, as your nephew, don't dare to believe even half of your words. For someone like you, as long as they believe even 10% of your words, they will die without a burial ground. Do you still remember Sha Feng who died with a grievance? Just a moment ago, the scene was still vivid in his mind, and his voice was still echoing in his ears. Ha 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 ha, do you still remember what he said before he died? Sha Feng said, he was heartless, but I can't be heartless. Ha ha, what a heart-wrenching cry. My uncle, in front of your betrayal, Sha Feng simply wanted to cry but had no tears. In comparison, you are nothing now. At most, you have retribution for your evil deeds and are despised by everyone. Ji Wuri's face had a sacred expression of righteousness over family. In front of him floated the incomparably glorious Holy Grimoire. Under the thousands of rays of light, he looked at Black Day with the gaze of a gourmet looking at the feast on the table. Just a grudge, do you think you can defeat me? Black Day sneered. Now he had calmed down. If he couldn't win, he could still escape back to the Grimoire world. At worst, he could hide in the Grimoire world for 1,000 years and see who could outlast who. No matter how strong the grudge was, it was impossible to sneak into other people's Grimoire world to capture them. As long as he summoned the Grimoire and returned to the Grimoire world, the danger would be easily resolved. Black Day raised his hand and summoned the Grimoire. Although it was painful to be betrayed, and it was also hateful to lose the number 1 position in the Outer Mountains, as long as he stayed, there was hope. Cherishing his life was the most important thing right now. As for what Ji Wuri would obtain in this God's War, would he take over the entire Outer Mountains and the valley? The number 1 position in the Outer Mountains? Black Day couldn't care less about that anymore. Everything, he had to protect himself. As for Black Day's cowardly behavior of summoning the Grimoire to escape back to the Grimoire world, Ji Wuri calmly watched and didn't stop him. 1 second later, Black Day's expression changed greatly. His face turned ashen, filled with panic. He was not the only one. Shuang Han, who was already heavily injured, and the Northern Divine Master Zhao Shi, who was quietly watching from the sidelines, also revealed shocked expressions. Dear Lord Gods, can't you summon your grimoire? Ji Wuri smiled slightly and spread out an ancient artifact in his palm. He was like a tour guide introducing a tourist to a famous scenic spot, explaining non-stop, if you are in the mood, I would like to teach you a lesson about the difference between a true god and a false god. However, you don't seem to be in a good mood, so let's skip this lesson. Anyway, with your intelligence, you won't be able to understand these profound things. You only need to know that in my domain, as long as there is no Jizun's will, anyone will be helpless in front of the law of the forbidden grimoire. You must think that the ancient artifact's function is only to weaken the enemy's power. The funny thing is that you have maintained this belief for 10,000 years. No one has ever questioned it, and no one has ever explored its root. Actually, the true function of the ancient artifact is to seal spirit. It's an important criterion to distinguish semi-divinities from true gods, and it's also an important criterion for cultivators to choose from in the trial of trials. You fools, you are only at the semi-divinity realm, so how could you possibly understand the truth? I was wrong, I shouldn't have placed such high hopes on you. Ji-Wuri shrugged his shoulders and said disdainfully, I thought that in these 10,000 years, one of you would break through your limits, become a false god, and comprehend Jizun's will. Then, you would not let down Taiyan and Bing Li's painstaking efforts in helping you contract grimoires with their remaining divine consciousness. Who knows, there is not a single genius among you, you are all trash. The whole place was dead silent. Frost Cold knelt on the ground powerlessly. He was hit by Ji-Wuri's contemptuous words, and his heart was broken into pieces. 10,000 years ago, Taiyan and Bing Li had paid a huge price to help everyone contract grimoires. Who knew that not a single one of them would become a false god? 10,000 years later, all of them were still false gods. What a waste of Taiyan and Bing Li's painstaking efforts. The North god, Lord Zhao Shi, was also sorrowful at this moment. His thoughts were immersed in the memories of the past, and he was unwilling to wake up and face such a cruel reality for a long time. Humph! Deicide was expressionless. He stretched his hand forward, and countless rays of divine light gathered in his palm. The light seemed to be under some kind of suppression, and it swayed. But in the end, it could not suppress Deicide's soaring will, and a pillar of light shot out, pointing to the sky angrily. A gold grimoire floated in front of Deicide. With a light flip of a page, thousands of sword chi cut through all the restrictions, and perfectly merged with its master, Deicide. Yu Yang, who was pretending to be dead, was shocked. Jizun's will. Deicide had also comprehended Jizun's will. Although this Supreme Elder's will couldn't be compared to his own, it was still stronger than Fatty Hai, Yi Kong, Xue Tan Lang, and the others. It definitely wouldn't be a problem for him to pass through the door of life and death. If it wasn't for the fact that the grimoire was made by Taiyan and Bing Li's God's aid contract which restricted him too much, Deicide's realm would probably be even higher. Ji-Wuri was stunned. Deicide's summon was beyond his expectations. Black Day, Zhao Shi, and Frost Cold were dumbfounded. It can't be right? Deicide, this crazy swordsman, had actually comprehended the legendary Supreme Will? Didn't this mean that he had already stepped into the true God level? No wonder Deicide wasn't afraid of Black Day's challenge at all. He wasn't afraid of the Western camp's schemes at all. If it wasn't for Ji-Wuri, Deicide's position as the number one in the outer mountains would be unshakable. Not to mention Black Day fighting 5 against 1, even if Akaji and Qing Yun joined in, they wouldn't be able to win 7 against 1. All of you, leave this place. Deicide waved his hand, ordering Frost Cold, Zhao Shi and the others to leave the battlefield. He summoned a sword-shaped guardian spirit beast and merged with it. His divine power immediately increased by 100 times. The sword chi condensed into a solid form, 1,000 meters long. If he waved it, Frost Cold didn't doubt that this solid form of sword chi would destroy the entire East God Nation, or even the entire outer mountains. Black Day's expression was very awkward. He realized that he was like a frog at the bottom of a well. With his current strength, It was a joke to challenge Deicide for the #1 position in the outer mountains. Deicide hadn't revealed his true strength until Ji-Wuri appeared. Only then did he summon his grimoire and show his true strength. Didn't this mean that Deicide didn't even put him in his eyes before? Not bad, it's finally interesting. The golden shadow clapped his hands and laughed. If I absorb you, it will definitely be a great supplement. Come, I can't wait to become one with you. Sword, exterminate. Deicide wasn't happy or angry. He swung the solid sword chi that was 1,000 meters long towards the strong enemy, Resentment. Resentment, who was in the form of a golden shadow, didn't move at all. Ji-Wuri casually flipped a page. The holy grimoire emitted a ball of light. It transformed into a humanoid war beast with a beautiful woman's upper body and a spider's lower body. As soon as she appeared, she laughed delicately. Her laughter was like a bell. What a fierce and hateful man. I like you so much. The God Slayer completely ignored the spider demon's words and slashed down with his 1,000-meter-long sword. Ruthlessly destroying a flower was exactly what a person with a heart of stone like him should be. The spider demon opened her cherry lips and gently exhaled. It was as gentle as a lover's breath in the ear. Countless transparent threads flew out. It lingered endlessly. Under the incredulous gazes of Frost Cold, Zhao Shi, and Black Day, it actually magically entangled Deicide's 1,000-meter-long sword that was driven by divine power and Ji Zun's will. At first, the 1,000-meter-long sword could still slash down slowly. However, it couldn't even cut through space. In the end, more and more transparent threads entangled the sword, trapping it in midair. Eastern God Lord Deicide, I have already studied you thoroughly. Ji-Wuri looked proud. Your sword can destroy heaven and earth. However, you don't know that there is one thing in this world that you can't cut. That is the threads of love. Threads of love. This time, even Deicide frowned. My threads of love spider demon is one of the strongest war beasts in the heaven realm. As long as she falls in love with her target, no prey in this world can escape. Threads of love can't be destroyed by any force in this world. Whether it's swords, water, or fire, in short, everything in this world can't escape the pull of threads of love. Before Ji-Wuri finished speaking, Deicide had already found himself trapped in an endless web of threads of love. The threads of love spider demon covered her mouth and snickered. With her strength, it was impossible to kill Deicide. However, she didn't need to kill this powerful Eastern God Lord. As long as she fell in love with him and trapped him firmly in the web of love, then everything in the outer mountain would belong to her master forever. No one could stop her. Die! Frost Cold roared. The ice chain shot towards the threads of love spider demon. He could see that this threads of love spider demon wasn't stronger than him. What was truly terrifying was the threads of love that were born after she fell in love with her target. As long as he killed her, Deicide could immediately escape. Ji-Wuri casually flipped through another page of his grimoire. A ray of light shot out and streaked across the ice chain. The ice chain immediately turned into a chain of fire and quickly burned back to its original body. Frost Cold, who had never been burned by fire in his entire life, roared in pain. He found that the more ice god power he released, the more fierce the fire burned. The enemy can transform your ice god power. Zhao Shi saw the truth from the true wonder divine mirror. You, who thought that you could see through the truth of the world, can you see that your heart is actually muddled? Someone behind Zhao Shi let out a drunken burp. The smell of alcohol was overwhelming. Even though Zhao Shi immediately held his breath. But he realized. He was still drunk. The true wonder divine mirror desperately warned him not to do anything. If he did, he would make a mistake. But Zhao Shi still couldn't help but turn around and look at the enemy who had unknowingly stared at him. What he saw was a jar of wine, emitting a tempting fragrance. Anyone who smelled this wine would be unable to resist the temptation. This temptation was like some kind of worm biting at one's heart, destroying all reason and endurance. Even though he knew that this was a fatal poison, Zhao Shi still couldn't resist. Step by step, he walked towards the jar of wine. He didn't want to do that, but his actions were completely out of control. It was as if there was some kind of extremely greedy wine worm controlling his body. Compared to the burning frost cold, Zhao Shi felt that his current situation was even more unfavorable. This was definitely a war beast that Ji Wuri had used to restrain him. Even though he knew that it was a trap, he didn't have Ji Zun's will. He couldn't control himself and was walking towards destruction. Drunken confusion worm. In order to restrain you, Zhao Shi, I have searched for a long time in the heaven realm before I found such a suitable war beast. If you had comprehended Ji Zun's will like deicide, then it would really be dangerous. Unfortunately, you, who have the true wonder divine mirror, are destined to die in confusion. Compared to frost cold, you're much better off. At least you're drunk to death. Ji Wuri seemed to be very interested in Zhao Shi. On the contrary, he was dismissive of frost cold. Don't forget, there's still me. Black Day was determined to fight with all his might. Deicide, Zhao Shi and frost cold were all trapped. If he didn't fight with all his might now, would there still be a chance? My dear uncle, how could I possibly forget you? After listening, Ji Wuri smiled slightly. He pretended to solemnly flip through a few pages of the grimoire, as if he was looking for a suitable war beast. He stretched out his hand to summon, and a black hole immediately appeared in the sky. In the depths of the black hole, there seemed to be a terrifying creature hiding. It opened its big mouth, and its mouth was as big as the black hole. Together with the black hole, the double power devoured the heaven and earth. After Black Day's divine power exploded, the dark divine power of darkness was actually swallowed by it in one gulp. After swallowing it, the monster seemed to feel that it was not enough and rolled its tongue. Black Day looked at the black hole in shock and found that the monster that could hide in the black hole and devour the heaven and earth was actually a strange giant frog. Black hole swallowing nether frog. It's an ancient giant frog that can even prey on the meteors in the sky. Black Day, what's your little bit of divine power? If it wasn't for your divine power being the best nourishment, do you think you can still live until now? Shame, anger, what we need is your explosion. The angrier you are, the more you explode, the more delicious it will be for us to eat. In the face of such a perverted and meticulously designed Ji Wuri, Frost Cold and Black Day were already in despair. Zhao Shi was drunk. His mind was no longer sober. Even the most powerful deicide of the outer mountain was trapped in the net of love and unable to escape. No one would have thought that the final winner of this god's war would be an outsider who had not even reached the god level, Ji Wuri. You can say your last words. Ji Wuri kindly gave everyone a chance to say their last word. I'll say it first. Yu Yang, who had been pretending to be dead for a long time, perhaps felt that he could be like Stephen Chow and die more mischievously, so he stood up and raised his hand to sign up. Having the chance to say his last words was a rare opportunity. As a cameo, how could he not sign up to participate? Chapter 1187. You didn't die? Black Day blurted out, his expression extremely stunned. A Sha Feng who should have died long ago. Now he suddenly crawled up. If you didn't die, you could just continue to lie on the ground and pretend to be dead. What kind of mentality was this? Black Day really couldn't understand a retard like Sha Feng. If it wasn't for this fellow's joyful expression of wanting to say his last words, he would have been a little touched. After all, in this kind of desperate situation, no matter who came out to share the burden, it would be an extremely precious help. However, towards a retard who was on the verge of death and immediately got up excitedly to say his last words, Black Day really couldn't feel touched. Frost Cold, whose entire body was on fire, looked as if he had seen a ghost as he looked at Sha Feng in front of him. Deicide was also dumbstruck. He saw Yu Yang cursing like a shrew, with one hand on his waist and the other pointing at Ji Wuri, scolding loudly, "You damn chicken, what do you mean? Are you looking down on me?" Deicide, you found a love silk spider demon to restrain him. Black Day also found a star-swallowing black hole nether frog to restrain him. Zhao Shi also found a drunken confused worm. Even that fellow Frost Cold. You have a beast that can transform ice and fire and fly around like annoying flies to restrain him. But I don't have anything. You're looking down on me too much. I'm not satisfied. You have to take out a beast that can restrain me, otherwise I will seriously protest and intensify the condemnation. Sha Feng, now is not the time to look into this. Frost Cold was almost shocked to death by Yu Yang's words. Cough. Black Day's forehead was also full of sweat. Then what you're saying is that I have to do the same thing to you? However, Ji Wuri wasn't angry. He was even smiling, as if he was in a good mood. However, a cold, killing intent flashed across his resentful golden eyes. If you don't find an extremely powerful beast that can restrain me, I won't let you off. Yu Yang looked as if he would not let the matter rest. Actually, not only you, Sha Feng, I have my own beasts that can restrain Akaji and Qin Yun. I'm really sorry, I thought that you had been killed by Deicide in an instant. I didn't expect you to still be alive. How about this, because there are too many beasts that can restrain you, I can't make the best choice in such a short amount of time. How about I summon a few beasts at random, and you choose how you want to die? Ji Wuri asked very patiently, at the same time apologizing for his carelessness. Wouldn't it have been better if you had said that earlier? Summon a few more, I'll take a good look at them. Yu Yang nodded happily. There's no saving him. Frost Cold covered his face. Knowing and being in the same camp as this kind of idiot was really a stain on his life's shame. Black Day also lowered his head in silence. Using this kind of person as cannon fodder, wouldn't that lower his own intelligence? Black Day was reflecting. The southern god Lord Tencho, who had been silent all this while, sneered and pointed his snow-guzzle divine blade at Yu Yang, who was disguised as Sha Feng. He scolded, You are not Sha Feng at all. Return to your original form immediately, you sneaky bastard, who are you? Frost Cold was shocked. He Zhou raised his head to look at Yu Yang, as if he was trying to find an opening. That's right, no matter how stupid Sha Feng was, he wouldn't be like this. Previously, because he had focused all his attention on Deicide, he had inexplicably neglected this bastard. Now that he thought about it, he felt that it was really suspicious. Was Sha Feng really that stupid? Ji Wuri clapped his hands and laughed. That day, I was already very suspicious. Now I can finally confirm that you, who was surrounded and beaten up by everyone, not only did you not get killed, you even deceived everyone. That idiot Sha Feng died in your hands long ago. You can deceive Black Day, can deceive Frost Cold, can even deceive Zhao Shi, who has the true Wonder Divine Mirror, but you can't deceive me, Akaji. Actually, in the mountains outside the mountains, the person who hid the deepest is you. Yu Yang immediately showed an expression that said, I've been seen through. He shrugged his shoulders and spread his hands. He sighed. Ji Wuri is indeed Ji Wuri. You're different without your penis. I, Akaji, have disguised myself very well. Even Black Day, who has been in alliance with me for 10,000 years, did not suspect me. I didn't expect you to see through it at a glance. You're really amazing. Sha Feng's divine power on his body quickly faded. His outer shell transformed and instantly transformed into Akaji's image. The quasi-divine weapon dragon swallowing buzzed in his hand, as if a dragon-shaped flame soared to the sky. He stretched out his hand. The ancient artifact and the double seal of Ji Wuri's sovereigns will turned into powder around his body. Although there was no summoning grimoire, no one in the audience would doubt that this Southeast Divine Lord Akaji had already comprehended Sovereign's will. The most amazing thing was that Taiyan's divine power, which had been hidden on the dragon-swallowing spear for 10,000 years, was instantly released. Its divine power was the same as it was in the past. Even resentment, the proud sky beyond heaven's #1 heavenly king, could not take it lightly. Deicide looked as if he did not know his brother. He was dumbfounded. Frostcold's jaw dropped to the ground. It can't be? Was Akagi really such a powerful and low-key person? He had comprehended Sovereign's will, yet he was still the Southeast Divine Lord quietly. Even when he was besieged, he did not reveal his true strength. The impact of this scene in front of them was too strong. It was really unbelievable. But everything in front of them was real. Damn it. This world was really crazy. It made people feel discouraged. Gee worry, what is the beast that is specially used to restrain me, Akagi? Yu Yang disguised as Akagi this time. He waved the dragon swallowing in his hand very bravely and heroically. He pointed the spear at resentment and snorted coldly, or, let this resentment, who was once the #1 scum in sky beyond heaven, fight with me first. After I send him back to the god-vanquishing secret realm, and complete Taiyan's request, I will fight with you again. Chichio, just by relying on you little bug. Resentment was angry. He could not defeat Taiyan and Bingley in the past, but he was not someone that a little brat like you could be so arrogant. However, he was a little afraid of the Taiyan's divine power on the dragon-swallowing spear. This was not someone to be trifled with. It was best not to touch it, because he had fused with his guardian beast. He could be immortal forever. Resentment was no longer worried that he would die in battle one day. However, the pain after Taiyan's divine power invaded his body was not something that resentment was willing to remember. Moreover, Jiwuri had his own preparations against Akagi. There was no need to complicate matters. Thinking of this, although resentment was angry, he did not make a move himself. He just stood by and watched. On the other side, Jiwuri stared at Yu Yang and did not speak for a long time. He seemed to be surprised by this chess piece that was out of his plan. The Southern God Lord was the opposite of Tencho. He strongly suspected that Akagi's sovereign's will was faked and he did not really comprehend it at all. Otherwise, why didn't he summon his grimoire? Perhaps Akagi had a special skill that could be immune to or destroy the ancient code prohibition created by the original body of the ancient relic. However, this did not mean that Akagi had comprehended Sovereign's will like Deicide. With Akagi's talent and potential, it was impossible. Trying to bluff? Dream on. Akagi, you will always be defeated by me. Tencho raised the snow-guzzling divine blade and slashed at Yu Yang, who was disguised as Akagi, who was holding the dragon swallowing. Although the power of the blade chi was slightly inferior to the sword chi of the god-slaying sword, the power of the divine weapon of the snow-drinking divine blade, coupled with the divine power of the southern god lord Tiancho, if it was the standard of strength in the past, this move was definitely not something that the southeastern god lord Chichio could contend with. Frost Cold and Black Day saw it clearly and knew the result. If Akagi did not have Sovereign's will, even if he did not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. However, what would happen now? Did Akagi really comprehend Sovereign's will? Jiwuri did not look at the battlefield but at Deicide's expression. He seemed to be trying to find a flaw in Akagi from Deicide. Deicide was expressionless. He was neither happy nor angry, he was still as proud as before. No one could pry into his inner world, and no one could find anything from his expression. Even when he was in love, Deicide's heart was as hard as stone. Go! Yu Yang did not use the dragon swallowing in his hand to block the attack. He thrust his spear backwards and moved his body to teleport away from Tenchu's snow-guzzling divine blade's attack range. At the same moment of teleportation, Tencho had already appeared in front of Yu Yang, snow-guzzling divine blade piercing through his chest. Sneak attack was always Tenchu's strongest move. Yu Yang was teleported 10,000 meters away. He frowned. He touched his chest and found that there was a slight trace of blood seeping out. It was not a direct hit, it was just a sneak attack, but it was able to injure someone from a distance. Southern God Lord Tenchu's sneak attack ability had indeed reached the peak of perfection. No wonder even the powerful Deicide and Black Day had died under his blade. When it came to sneak attacks and power, Southern God Lord Tencho could definitely be called the top of the outer mountains. Compared to Yu Yang, who had been struck, the Southern God Lord, Tian Cho, who had missed, was even more shocked. Sneak attack failed? He had never imagined that his sneak attack would fail. Not to mention the stab he had used on Akagi. This snow-guzzling divine blade was a sneak attack divine weapon that had just drunk the blood of Deicide and Black Day. Even the number one person in the outer mountains, Deicide, could not escape a stab through his chest and suffer internal injuries. How could Akagi escape unscathed? It seemed like he had only suffered a superficial wound. Could Akagi really have comprehended the sovereign will? In an instant, as the assassin, Tencho himself was somewhat shaken. If Akagi had not comprehended the sovereign will, how could he have escaped from his snow-guzzling divine blade? Others did not know, but when they saw that Yu Yang's chest was injured and his clothes were stained with blood, they were greatly disappointed. They thought that this Akagi was lying and that he had not actually comprehended the sovereign will. Otherwise, how could he have been injured? They had all forgotten that the God Slayer, who also had the will of a supreme being, would inevitably suffer internal injuries under Tian Chao's assassination even if he used his fingers to clamp the snow-guzzling divine saber. He could not truly remain unharmed. Compared to the god-slaying technique from before, according to Tian Chao's feelings, the current Crimson Dragon was even more slippery like oil, and it was difficult to hit it. Your deception is not bad, I like your performance. Jiwuri was relieved. Akagi was injured by Tenchu's snow-guzzling divine blade, which proved that he did not surpass Deicide. As long as he did not surpass Deicide, there was no need to worry. Same to you. I also like your performance. Yu Yang replied with a chuckle, like a well-mannered child. Sovereign will? TSK this bragging. Resentment sneered disdainfully. Be careful, Akagi is very strong. Southern God Lord Tencho hurriedly reminded Jiwuri and Resentment to not be careless. I will immediately throw him into the world of terror. As long as he does not have the sovereign will, he will stay there for the rest of his life and suffer all kinds of torture. Jiwuri pressed his holy grimoire and summoned a super-strong humanoid beast whose face could not be seen clearly, but there was a strange twisted light wheel behind it. The mysterious masked humanoid beast looked at Yu Yang, and its eyes flashed with brilliance. Frost Cold pounced towards Yu Yang. Disregarding everything, it shot out thousands of ice chains, hoping to block the first wave of attack for Yu Yang, Akagi. His ice chains turned into fire chains in midair, binding his body and burning crazily. There was no time to scream. Frost Cold, who was blocking in front of Yu Yang, was sucked into the strange eyes of the mysterious masked humanoid beast. Immediately after, there was a small image of Frost Cold in the twisted light wheel behind the mysterious masked humanoid beast, struggling and wailing in pain, as if he was suffering the most terrible torture in the world. It was endless, and there was no peace for a moment. Countless ice chains shot out from the twisted light wheel and danced wildly. Under the fast-flowing light in the sky, they turned into fire chains that covered the sky and rolled back. Black Day saw this scene. His heart sank straight down. Jiwuri's research on how to restrain the 8 outer mountain gods had reached its limit. Frost Cold was not weak, but in front of Jiwuri, he did not even have the strength to fight back. Frost had fallen, but what about him? What should he do? Kill Black Day. Jiwuri's main body can only absorb Black Day's divine power. Stop. Qing Yun, who had fallen to the ground, suddenly shouted weakly. What? Black Day was shocked. Was this the truth behind G. Worry's plan? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.